Okay, if we could get started, I appreciate everybody's appearance here. Good morning. This is the Rules Committee. We have attained a quorum with Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Sanchez, Councilman Heenan, Councilwoman Reynolds-Brown, and myself, Bill Greenlee. Before we start the testimony, there's 3 bills that will not be heard today. They'll be held at the call of the chair. Bill number 190382, which is a zoning bill dealing with multifamily and single-family zoning areas. 160710 is dealing with a zoning bill dealing with parking regulations, and 190638, which is a zoning bill in the Cedar Square area. Those 3 bills will be held to the call of the chair at the request of the sponsors, and when they are heard again, they will be advertised as they were today. Ms. Marconi, please, our first bill.
Bill number 190711, an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Broad Street, Oregon Avenue, 10th Street, and the Schuylkill Expressway.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Gregorski.
Good morning, Chairman Greenlee, members of the Rules Committee. Marty Gregorski, Division Director with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 190711, which was introduced in the City Council on September 19th of this year by Councilmember Johnson. Bill number 190711 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designation of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Broad Street, Oregon Avenue, 10th Street, and I-76. This bill proposes changes from RM1, residential multifamily, RSD3, residential single-family detached, and CMX1 and CMX2, commercial mixed-use commercial, to primarily RSA5, residential single-family attached. This reflects current land use of the neighborhood and is consistent with the South District Plan's priority zoning recommendation A to preserve existing single-family zoning. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 190711 at its meeting of October 15th of this year and recommended it for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. And I see there's an amendment. It's making a change in the map.
Map changes, correct.
Slight change, not
Yes.
anything major? All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gregorski on this bill? Seeing none, anyone else here to testify on Bill number 190711? Seeing no one. Ms. Marconi, on next bill, please.
Bill number 190601, an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to revise certain provisions of Chapter 14-200 entitled Definitions and Chapter 14-600 entitled Use Regulations by creating the use category Smoking Lounge and related changes, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Gregorski.
Good morning, Marty Gregorski with the Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 190601, which is introduced in the City Council on June 20th of this year by Councilmember Heenan. Bill number 190601 amends the Philadelphia zoning code by creating a new zoning district entitled Smoking Lounge, where the smoking of tobacco products, electronic cigarettes, or other substances is permitted. Examples of smoking lounges would include, but are not limited to, cigar lounges, hookah lounges, vape lounges, tobacco clubs, tobacco bars, etc. The creation of this use subcategory for smoking lounges will help create an appropriate use for businesses of this type that currently have difficulty finding an appropriate use classification. The staff believes that while this use is a special exception in many zoning districts, it should be allowed by right in more zoning districts than the CMX4 and CMX5 Center City Commercial Mixed Use District. Only permitting these uses in Center City, where the bulk of the CMX4 and 5 districts are located, basically blocks them from virtually every other part of the city, including large shopping centers and commercial strips. So while the staff is supportive of creating this use, we believe the list of districts where they are permitted should be expanded to include areas outside of Center City. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 190601 at its meeting of July 20th of this year and recommended it for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Sarah, why don't you go and then we'll
Good morning, Chairperson Greenlee and members of the Committee on Rules. My name is Sarah Adamo, and I am the Legislative Affairs Manager for the Department of Licenses and Inspections. Today, I am here to provide testimony on Bill number 190601, which, if enacted, will amend Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning. The bill would amend the zoning code by creating and defining a use category called smoking lounge. In the past, L&I has struggled to fit these types of uses into one of the use categories listed in the code. This legislation would provide an unambiguous use category, which will result in more predictable and consistent reviews and enforcement efforts by the department. The creation of this use category also makes the provisions of the zoning code more closely aligned with the existing regulations of the Health Department. The Department of Licenses and Inspections is supportive of this bill and is prepared to enforce it should it become law. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the department's testimony. I'm happy to answer questions at this time.
Thank you both. Councilwoman Sanchez?
Thank you. Marty, a question, and you spoke about its permitted use. The commission wanted to see it more broadly. This doesn't eliminate people having the ability to do that through a special exemption as long as they go through a community process, right?
That's correct. It would require a trip to the zoning board. We think that there should be more matter of right opportunities.
Okay, but you know, the only difference is they actually have to go through a community process.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. And there will be amendments on this bill which will be offered at the meeting. Councilman Jones?
Excuse my voice in advance. I have grandkids, and often they are petri dishes. But I love them anyway. My question is, are you categorizing hookah lounges, smoking bars, as you would bars, almost? I mean,
We are moving towards that. However, the restriction to only Center City doesn't allow them to be completely comparable. We think that, bars, lounges where adults are making their own adult decisions, they're permitted throughout the city in many different areas. So these would not be treated exactly the same as a bar.
so trendy strips like Main Street, why would you exempt them? Why would you not exempt them?
We would like to see them more places like, malls and some commercial strips. Right now, they're basically blocked without a special exception in most areas of the city. So CMX4 and CMX5 is almost entirely located in Center City.
And so are you in a way marginalizing those small businesses that can participate in a Center City rent as opposed to a neighborhood rent? That's been one of the concerns that has come to my office.
We don't want to marginalize them.
I mean, is this, I guess it would be more directed towards you. I know you can't hear. Yes.
I'm sorry, is this bill marginalizing those
Yeah,
uses?
so only people who can afford Center City rents are going to get by right. People who can afford neighborhood rents are going to have to go through,
Would have to go through the zoning process.
which is costly.
Right, and time-consuming. So if it were permitted by right in more districts, which is what city planning is suggesting, then, these commercial areas would be able to have these uses by right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Councilman, I guess the argument, the counter-argument that would be that maybe there's communities that do not desire these, and thus these businesses, as Councilwoman Sanchez points out, could still get it, but they would have to go through the zoning board and the community would have to be involved. I think that's the balance they're trying to reach here. Councilman Heenan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad that Chairman just made that comment, because this is clearly, regulated. It's not prohibited, any kind of smoking lounges or hookah lounges. What it does is, in neighborhoods where the community doesn't have any kind of input, they don't, understand, the hours of operations. They don't understand a lot about the small businesses. It gives an opportunity, just like most things that we have when we reformed our zoning code and has tweaked them over the past several years. We as business models change and new businesses come into our communities, the community has repeatedly asked, how they can participate and what they would like and or conform in the surrounding areas. So I think it's extremely important to make sure that all our communities in our neighborhoods, have the opportunity to weigh in and have input on, who their partners are and the places that they live in and the places where they spend their money. So I think this is a great opportunity that is not just working with elected officials, both state, city, and federal, and in this body, but as well as our city departments such as L&I, who strongly recommends. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much. Thank you all. Is there anyone else here to testify on bill number 190601? Seeing none. Ms. Marconi, our next bill, please.
Bill number 190506, an ordinance amending section 14-303 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Common Procedures and Requirements by allowing certain letters submitted to the zoning board to serve as an entry of appearance, all under certain terms and conditions.
Mr. Gregorski, before you start, did you get a copy of the amendment?
I have it now, but our testimony was written before I saw it.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure you had it. Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Marty Gregorski with the City Planning Commission here to testify on bill number 190506, which was introduced in the City Council on June 6th of this year by Councilmember Greenlee for Council President Clark. Bill number 190506 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code, section 14-303, entitled Common Procedures and Requirements by allowing certain letters submitted to the zoning board to serve as an entry of appearance, all under certain terms and conditions. For the purposes of providing notices of the ZBA decisions, this bill will work as intended. But we believe that the bill may give registered community organizations a false impression that the entry of appearance alone satisfies the requirements for standing to appeal ZBA decisions to the courts. The courts will look to whether an appellant actually appeared at the hearing, regardless of whether an entry of appearance was accepted. Additionally, this bill suggests that RCOs will be receiving preferential treatment over other individuals who are also unable to attend the hearings. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 190506 at its meeting of August 20th this year and did not recommend it for approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. And as I said, there will be an amendment put in which basically takes out the phrase "shall serve as an entry of appearance." And just in your opinion, I don't know if you can say this, does that seem to satisfy the concern that was raised?
It's moving in the right direction for sure. One of our main concerns was that folks would think that this would count in court in an appeal, and the law departments believe that it wouldn't, and that's good that you're moving that.
Because I think the intent of the council president, and I, like you said, I put this in for him, was just to make sure that the RCOs and the members that wrote in, which used to be, I think, the practice, would be notified of the decision of the zoning board. I think that's basically the reason behind this bill. It wasn't to go any further.
And it will do
because if people do want to be counted as being in, in any kind of court challenge or anything, they should be there. I think we agree with that. But they can't come to everything, and at least to be notified of what the decision of the zoning board was.
Right.
So. Okay, thank you. Please let the record reflect that Councilman Squilla, Vice Chair of the committee, and Councilman Johnson? Yes, Councilman Johnson is also present. Any questions for Mr. Gregorski on this bill? Seeing none. Anyone else here to testify on bill number 190506? Seeing none. Thank you. Ms. Marconi, our next bill, please.
Bill number 190655, an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to revise certain provisions of Chapter 14-502 entitled CTR Center City Overlay District by amending the supplemental use controls for the Old City residential area, all under certain terms and conditions.
Mr. Gregorski.
Morning, Marty Gregorski with the Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 190655, which was introduced in the City Council on September 12th of this year by Councilmember Squilla. Bill number 190655 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by revising certain provisions of Chapter 14-502 entitled Center City Overlay District by amending the supplemental use controls for the Old City residential area. The intent of this bill is to promote active ground floor uses in Old City. This bill modifies the Old City residential area so that the first 30 feet in depth must be a use other than residential or parking for 100% of the ground floor frontage on lots zoned CMX3 Community Commercial Mixed Use on certain streets. Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 190655 at its meeting of October 15th of this year and recommended approval with 2 amendments. First, a reduction in the number of streets and overall area where this provision will apply. And second, clarifications to allow for parking access on certain ground floor frontages. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, sir. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 2 amendments that are recommended, do you think that helps clarify the legislation, or?
It will for sure. There's problems when you don't allow for any access for parking or egress or ingress into the property. The strictest interpretation would be that any existing parking garage doesn't comply. You'd have to go to the zoning board to put a residential unit in. So I think that helps. We looked at the areas, the streets that were included, and not all of them have commercial on them. So we basically, took out those areas that didn't have commercial on them anyway.
All right.
We requested that.
Thank you very much. We're going to let Job testify from Old City District and go from there.
Okay, no problem. All right.
Thank
Any other questions, Mr. Gregorski? All right, seeing none, Ms. Marconi, I think we have another witness here.
Job Itzkowitz from Old City Special
There he
Services
is.
District.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chairman Greenlee, Councilman Squilla, and members of the Committee on Rules. My name is Joe Bitzkowitz. I'm the Executive Director of the Old City Special Services District, here to testify in support of Bill number 190655. I see that you have a very busy agenda today. I've submitted written testimony. Just know that our board supports this bill.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Itzkowitz?
No, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one last thing is that we do support the amendments for this bill, and looking forward to passing this out. Thank you.
Okay, so will they be offered now or today? Just for... Or they could be amended on the floor, which way you choose.
Okay, let's leave it as is.
You'll leave it as is, and, okay, all right, thank you. Anyone else here to testify on Bill number 190655? All right, seeing none, Ms. Marconi, our next bill, but before actually, we're going to hear 3 bills together, but before she does, as we appreciate Mr. Itzkowitz just putting in the written testimony. There are a lot of people now that want to testify on a number of these bills. If you have put in written testimony, we would ask that you summarize your testimony just in the interest of time for everyone, so everyone gets a chance to speak and not have to leave before we finish. That testimony will be made part of in its full, be made part of the record, and we appreciate your cooperation in that. So, Ms. Marconi, our next 3 bills, please.
Bill number 190611, an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to revise certain provisions of Chapter 14-800 entitled Parking and Loading by amending parking standards for historically designated properties and making related changes all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 190612, an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to revise certain provisions of Chapter 14-600 entitled Use Regulations by amending standards for accessory dwelling units and making related changes all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 190613, an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to revise certain provisions of Chapter 14-600 entitled Use Regulations by amending use standards for historically designated properties and making related changes all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Gregorski.
Marty Gregorski with the City Planning Commission. Bill number 190611 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by amending the parking standards for historically designated properties, making related changes. The bill lowers the minimum parking requirement for properties that are locally designated historic or that contribute to a local historic district. This means that in existing historic structures, uses that are not allowed by right will not require a minimum amount of parking. Also, for additions or expansions to historic structures, the base zoning district required minimum parking requirement will be reduced by 50%. The City Planning Commission considered Bill number 190611 at its meeting of August 20th and recommended it for approval. For Bill Number 190612, it amends the Philadelphia zoning code, amending the current standards for accessory dwelling units such that they would be permitted by right within any locally designated historic building or structure, or any building or structure that contributes to a locally designated historic district. In addition, the bill would exempt the ADUs placed within such structures from the restriction that would otherwise limit ADUs to a maximum size of 800 square feet. The City Planning Commission considered Bill Number 190612 at its meeting of August 20th and recommended it for approval. And on Bill Number 190613, this will allow locally designated historic properties zoned residentially or CMX 1, 2, or 2.5 commercial that meet certain criteria to have the uses permitted in CMX 3 Community Commercial District. The existing buildings must be used for one of the following uses to be eligible for the CMX 3 upgrade: an office use, retail sales, commercial service, wholesale distribution and storage use, or an industrial use. Properties with no such history of uses, as confirmed by the Historical Commission, are not eligible for the CMX 3 uses. This new section will only apply to existing principal structures that meet the criteria, not to new structures or expansions of existing structures. The regulated uses, such as adult uses or amusement arcades, would not be permitted, and none of the new uses would earn any zoning bonuses. This bill was also amended to create a 2,500 square foot minimum threshold for these properties, so that at least 2,500 square feet of the property was currently or formerly used for one of the qualifying uses. Also, to allow the applicant to use the property as currently zoned, and to prohibit vehicular equipment and sales uses in these properties. These changes were the result of some community comments on the existing bill and will serve to make the properties more compatible with neighborhoods in which they are located. This bill and the others are a result of the recommendations of the Historic Preservation Task Force. This would expand the number of uses that a historic property could use in an effort to make keeping the building more appealing to developers, as opposed to demolishing the structure for a new use. Because so many uses would now be available, the staff believes that it would be very difficult for an owner to use a financial hardship argument before the Historical Commission regarding proposed demolitions of locally designated structures. The Planning Commission at its meeting of August 20th this year recommended Bill Number 190613 for approval, with the understanding that the staff would pursue the possible amendments to clarify and improve sections of the bill which were causes for concerns in the community. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. On those, first on 612, there is an amendment. Have you seen that?
We have, yes.
And you're,
yes,
that addresses. And then you talk about amendments in 613.
Correct.
Is that the same ones that are being offered?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So that addresses a lot of the concerns you had raised?
I'll let them speak for themselves, but it addresses the concerns
Okay.
that we heard.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Gregorski on these three bills? Seeing none. Ms. Marconi, we have a number of witnesses on this one. Could you call the first three, please?
Paul Stanky and Patrick Rossi, David Feldman, and Gary Jonas.
Okay. And again, as I stated before, because we have a lot of people here, as you can see, if you have written testimony, if you could summarize that written testimony, we'd appreciate it in the interest of everybody being out of here at a reasonable time. So please identify yourself. And again, your testimony should be on all three bills if you have opinion on all three of those.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Paul Steinke, Executive Director of the Preservation Alliance for Greater Philadelphia. And the Preservation Alliance is a member-supported, nonprofit, citywide advocacy group for historic preservation issues in Philadelphia. I want to thank you for having me here today. Want to remind you that these bills that Councilman Squilla introduced all were recommendations of the Mayor's Historic Preservation Task Force. And I want to emphasize, as the Planning Commission testimony did, and by the way, you do have my written testimony in front of you, but this only applies to historically designated properties in the city. And only less than 3% of the properties in the city of Philadelphia enjoy historic designation. So it applies to a very small subset of the properties in the city. There are currently no preservation-specific incentives for historic preservation in Philadelphia, which is kind of shocking when you think about it, because we all know that Philadelphia is among the, if not the most historic cities in the United States of America, yet we have no preservation-specific incentives. These incentives are not financial in nature, they are procedural in nature because they are amendments to the zoning code. And they are all intended to make it easier to maintain and adapt historically designated properties in the city. And again, that's fewer than 3%. So very quickly, Bill 190611 would reduce or eliminate parking requirements. Parking is an expensive proposition in historic buildings. Oftentimes, historic buildings occupy 100% of their lot, 100% lot coverage. So this bill, if it went through, would enable the property owner to devote more resources to the renovation and adaptation of their historic property. Bill 119612, which would allow accessory dwelling units. I always use the example of a big sprawling single in Germantown, or you name your neighborhood, Frankfurt, or Mount Airy, or Winfield, that the house is really big. There might be an empty nester or couple there might be a young couple, and allowing accessory dwelling units in residents like that would provide an additional source of revenue for that property owner to maintain their home. It also increases housing supply in those neighborhoods. So we think that's a smart bill as well. And finally, Bill 190613, which would apply to special purpose buildings. I'm talking about buildings like churches, schools, and industrial buildings that are being converted to new uses. I don't think I have to tell you how many churches we have in this city where congregations are dwindling, buildings are being sold, and those landmark churches are being demolished because it's easier just to clear the building away than it is to adapt them. So passage of 190613 would make it easier to, instead of demolishing them, having those church buildings, vacant former schools, old factories, turned into housing or commercial uses, which would add to the city's economy, add to street life, and most importantly to us, preserve those buildings' impact on the historic character of our very historic city. Again, I just want to close by saying these bills only apply to historically designated properties. It's not easy to get your building designated historic, as Councilman Jones knows in Overbrook Farms today. It takes a lot of work to get buildings designated, and only 3% of them are designated. We need more buildings designated in the city, and this would be a modest incentive in that direction. So we do call on this committee to pass these bills out of committee to the full council.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Yeah. We'll hear from the whole panel. Ms. Garcia, please identify yourself and proceed.
Sure, my name is Gary Jonas, and I'm the treasurer of the Building Industry Association, and I'm here to testify on bills 19061, 1906112, and 1906113. BIA fully recognizes the value of the historic preservation, celebrating Philadelphia's history, cultural identity, and the character of our diverse neighborhoods. We support measures that make restoration, rehabilitation, and adaptive reuse of designated historic buildings more cost-effective. We're therefore in full support of these bills. The package of bills sensibly reduces some of the challenges inherent in preserving historic buildings and returning them to active and under current zoning other regulations. Bill number 190611 relieves historic buildings of parking and building requirements, allowing for flexibility of the site and the building design, and specifically reducing development costs, which we think is super important. Bill number 190612 permits accessory dwelling units by right in designated buildings, enhancing the value of the income potential, providing homeowners with a revenue stream that we think will be helpful in preserving them. And Bill number 190613 allows for the by right development of special purpose historic buildings, typically churches, schools, and industrial buildings, that pose particular challenges to adaptive reuse. By significantly broadening the potential uses beyond what the underlying zoning would allow, many of these buildings can be saved. So on behalf of the 350 member companies, the BIA welcomes these measures and looks forward to supporting further incentives and regulatory changes as outlined in the task force report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Feldman, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Greenlee and members of the Committee on Rules. The Executive Director of the Development Workshop. We've submitted written testimony, so I'll just quickly summarize our three main points in support of all three bills. The first point is our support for the Historic Preservation Task Force process for the 18 months that a very diverse and wide-ranging group of stakeholders got together, and for Council's work, and in this case, Councilman Squilla's work to take the information from the task force and apply it appropriately to on-the-ground solutions in support of our historic infrastructure that we have. And the 2 points on that is we applaud that these are sensible moves to address what are really obstacles and challenges for development in Philadelphia, for the cost of construction, the cost of the process of getting approvals, and the relatively low return that buildings get. So this helps address that to make these historic preservation of existing buildings financially feasible, to improve the likelihood that those buildings will get to stay as part of our physical and cultural heritage. And the final point we have is that increasingly people are looking to move to places that have authentic, historic, walkable, transit-oriented neighborhoods. These are our historic neighborhoods. So this is a move that helps bolster the ability to attract new residents and also to retain our graduates. Commerce Department has reported we've done a great job sort of doubling the percentage of college graduates in the area who stay here. This is the kind of thing that will help continue to increase those people staying in Philadelphia.
Thank you. Thank you all. Stay. Oh, don't go anywhere. Hold on. There's a couple questions or comments. Councilman Jones and Councilwoman
Right.
Brown.
Again,
Councilman Jones.
I want to thank the sponsor of this bill for raising these issues. I want to thank the Historical Commission for being patient with me to understand a lot of these issues. And there's a book called The Geography of Nowhere. If we're not careful, it shows where overdevelopment, over-modernization has the unintended consequence of erasing architectural history. If you look at some of the sections of Philadelphia now, they look like every other section of Philadelphia. The character of certain neighborhoods is diminished. And so I want to thank Councilman Squilla for this opportunity to further the viability of buildings like this through parking. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hear you now.
I want to salute the sponsor of this bill as well. And to Paul Stanky, I would like to punctuate your point with regards to so many of our historic churches and how sadly they're being torn down for reasons that you and I are at least aware of. So let me ask, is there some mechanism in place by which there's a direct connect to the clergy community to alert them that they need to consider coming to your organization so that you can help them meet the high standards and requirements to become a historically certified building?
We do have strong relationships with members of the Philadelphia clergy for multiple denominations, and we'd like to be able to go back to them and say that City Council is making it easier to adapt these buildings and for them to consider ways to make sure that happens, even if and when their tenancy in those buildings is ending, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so once presumably passed, has there been some, and this may be premature for us, but presuming the bills become law, a means by which that indeed happens, because lack of awareness has its consequences?
We would be looking to partner with our community partners,
Okay.
registered community associations, organizations, community development corporations,
Okay.
networks of clergy and religious organizations to get the word out about this change.
Yeah, I would submit that we would have to be intentional about that, because it won't, it may happen coincidentally, if you will, but if we really want to see the value and impact of this, then a real strategic plan around community awareness will be important.
Yes, and my colleague David Feldman reminds me of Partners for Sacred Places, another group that's active in this field that we would seek to partner with on this.
Okay, then, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Squilla and then Councilman Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do want to thank you all, the Preservation Alliance, along with the task force that the mayor put together, because these recommendations, among others, are just a start of what we could do to try to help preserve the historic fabric of the city of Philadelphia.
Agreed.
And there's going to be hiccups and unintended consequences, and we're going to learn from them, and we could adjust as we move forward. But I know you were here testifying last week on a possibility of a fund to also help people who are in the underserved areas. But what do you think would be the pinnacle of legislation in order to be able to preserve the most possible buildings in the city of Philadelphia?
Well, I think one, thank you for that question. It's kind of a softball question in a way. One way that would be welcome is if council would take another look at the budget that is devoted to the city's historical commission and to increase that to be more in keeping with the need that we see in terms of vulnerable historic properties around the city, to get more of them under protection. So that would be number one. Number two would be to look at the various incentive programs that the city offers to the development and construction industry to see if there are ways to make those incentives more reflective of the historic character of Philadelphia. One of them that's often been discussed is the 10-year tax abatement, to find ways to make that more powerful for incentivizing investment and maintenance in historic buildings in the city. So there are two things that come immediately to mind that, in answer to your question, and probably as soon as I stop talking, I'll think of several more.
No, and there are other recommendations from the task force also. It was just a question to see if, we have more work to do, so looking forward to doing it.
And I did want to quickly point out, there's something that few people seem to be aware of in the city. Part of the Historical Commission is, and I forget the exact name of it, but a hardship task force, financial hardship. So, for instance, if there are homeowners who live in a historic district who need to do renovations to their homes, they can look at alternative windows or shingles or things like that if they can't afford to, say, do a slate roof, to have a slate look roof. And every month that I believe that committee meets and looks at that as needed. There might not be an application every month, but so that's something that is in place also to help make sure that there's no hardship imposed by changes like this that are made or expansion of historic designation.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Johnson?
Thank you very much, Councilman. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Councilman Mark Squilla for his leadership on this bill, and thank Paul and his team. I remember meeting with you in my office some time ago around this very same issue, and you talked about this legislation coming forward. And I think the trade-off between the parking and the preservation of historical buildings is a plus in gentrifying neighborhoods. I've been doing a lot of work since I've been a councilman and also a state representative about development equity and making sure that there's a balanced approach. And one of the issues that we deal with a lot in areas such as Point Breeze and Grays Ferry is when we see development taking place and the changing of the neighborhood, the loss of particularly the churches. And these are historical churches that have been inside, have been the bedrock primarily in the African-American communities, but also just in general throughout the 2nd Councilmanic District as well. And I know even in parts of Girard Estate in the 48th Ward, we also have some historical churches that we would like to see preserved. And so I think this is a plus. I want to just commend the task force and commend Councilman Squilla for this leadership on this issue, because it goes a long way toward also just bridging what I call sometimes a divide, where we try to bring people together. And a lot of times, the type of development that takes place in a community can be that deciding factor if people get along or not get along. And I think the more that you can preserve the historical buildings, I think it goes a long way in helping people maintain their natural culture of their neighborhood. And so I just want to thank you for your leadership on this.
You're welcome. And if I could just make a brief comment on that, I spent about 11 years of my life living in the Graduate Hospital neighborhood, and so many of the churches that were there when I moved in the late 80s are gone. Two of them, First African at 15th and Christian, and First Colored Wesleyan at 17th and Fitzwater, are being adapted and preserved. We need to change the balance there and have, instead of just two to point to, and especially as other neighborhoods start getting development pressure, to be able to point to many more than that as being saved and adapted to new uses as the neighborhood changes.
Thank you. All right, no further questions. The record will reflect Councilwoman Bass, member of the committee, is present. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Marconi, I think we have a couple more people on record here.
Eli Storch, Job Itzkowitz, and Catherine Dowd and Katie Lowe.
Okay, whoever would like to start. Ms. Storch.
Good morning. My name is Eli Storch. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Design Advocacy Group, testifying in favor of all three bills up for discussion. The Design Advocacy Group, which we call ourselves DAG, is a public forum and advocate for design quality and equity in the planning, architecture, preservation, and physical development of Philadelphia. We're a volunteer organization of more than 1,700 members from a broad spectrum of disciplines who share an interest in promoting excellence in Philadelphia's physical environment. You have my written testimony,
Yes.
so I'll keep it brief. But as an organization, we're excited to see the final recommendations of the Mayor's Task Force evolving into practical policy, which we believe each of these bills to be. And in our public comments back when we were reacting to the final draft of the Mayor's Task Force report, I'll just note that DAG stated that we're especially enthusiastic about by right zoning for special purpose historic buildings. These buildings are often the most difficult to reuse, and this added level of flexibility goes a long way to giving them a fighting chance. We thank you for addressing the challenge of historic preservation in Philadelphia head on. We hope that you'll support all three bills. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Joe?
Good morning, Chairman Greenlee, Councilman Squilla, members of the committee. My name is Job Itzkowitz. I'm the Executive Director of the Old City Special Services District, here to testify in support of Bill number 190611. I've submitted written testimony, and I'm happy to rely on that. I'll just mention that we're not offering positions on the other two bills only because they seemed a bit less applicable, ironically, to Old City, where our churches are doing fine and there's not a lot of room for ADUs.
Great.
But for the parking bill, we support that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you both. Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Please, both of you, please come up. Thank you. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Dowdell, and I'm testifying today on behalf of the Philadelphia chapter of the American Institute of Architects. AIA is Philadelphia's voice for the architectural profession and represents more than 263 member firms and 228 affiliate companies supplying products and services to the region. I'd like to thank Chairman Greenlee for allowing me to testify, and I also want to thank Councilman Squilla for introducing Bills 190611, 190612, and 190613, which AIA Philadelphia enthusiastically endorses. The recently concluded Preservation Task Force accurately pointed out the dearth of incentives for historic preservation in Philadelphia, and these three bills begin to address that lack. To briefly summarize, we support the elimination of parking minimums for historic buildings undergoing adaptive reuse. We agree that purpose-built historic properties should be reused without requiring a zoning variance, and we think this will incentivize the adaptive reuse of these challenging structures. And we feel that the provision for allowing accessory dwelling units in large owner-occupied homes will assist with affordability for both homeowners and their prospective tenants. We thank Councilman Squilla for taking the lead on introducing and championing these bills. As important as these bills are, though, they represent only a first step in creating real incentives for preservation and adaptive reuse of our older buildings. The AIA, both locally and nationally, is interested in and committed to the sustainability of our built environment. For new construction projects, we embrace the latest in green building standards. However, it's often said that the greenest building is one that's already here. Preserving the best of our existing built environment will contribute to the city's sustainability and affordability goals. Therefore, in that spirit, we'd like to make a few brief suggestions with the hope that City Council will consider and support additional efforts in this regard. Councilwoman Blackwell has recently proposed creating a preservation assistance fund to assist lower-income homeowners with historically sensitive repairs. At the same time, Councilman Squilla and the City Planning Department have been working on a bill to create something for preservation similar to the Housing Trust Fund. Any program that encourages the maintenance and repair of historic buildings over deterioration and demolition will have our support. In addition, this kind of assistance will allow lower-income homeowners to remain in their houses and in their neighborhoods, contributing to the stability of those families and neighborhoods. We also enthusiastically support the creation of a citywide survey of historic resources, a key recommendation of the task force. Such a survey would benefit the entire city planning and development community, along with assisting community groups who want to understand what is significant in their own neighborhoods. We strongly encourage City Council to work with the administration to not only fund such a survey, but to support it in other ways that would bring this valuable tool to fruition as soon as possible. Lastly, linked to a citywide survey of historic resources is our hope that a more careful review of proposed demolitions can be implemented, particularly while such a survey of resources is underway. Every neighborhood is experiencing the loss of character-defining buildings, in some areas at a staggeringly rapid pace. While not all demolitions can or should be halted, we are inadvertently allowing many historic buildings to be put at risk simply because we don't know what we have. The AIA supports bills number 190611, 190612, and 190613 as an excellent first step in providing better support for the rich built environment of Philadelphia. And we ask that the committee and all of council support them as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please. Please identify yourself. Proceed.
Hi, my name is Katie Lowe. I'm just a regular old citizen here on my own behalf. And I just want to say thank you, Councilman Squilla and your team, for bringing forward these bills. Any movement in this direction is good. I generally support all three of them. I just have a comment about 190613, and it's possible that I just don't understand the bill. My concern is that it only covers CMX 1, 2, and 2.5, but there are parts of our city that have historically valuable buildings that are already at risk that are not in those zoning categories. So I wonder if it would be appropriate to broaden what it covers, or...
Councilman Squirrel might be able to address that. Councilman?
Yes, basically the reason was to incentivize the buildings who are at lower zoning levels, because they're the ones that usually have a harder time being able to get reused, and the funds available are not available for those smaller zone buildings. People who do the bigger buildings have the recourse to do that. But I think during this process, as you heard with the Preservation Alliance, we are constantly looking to fix things if they feel like there is something that is missed or an unintended consequence that we did something that we should pull back on. So as this plays out and as we see how the bills work, we can adjust them as possible. I'm going to ask Marty Grigorski if he could come up and just state as far as the planning's position on it.
Morning, Marty Grigorski with the Planning Commission again. This also includes residentially zoned properties. So it's not just the CMX 1, 2, and 3. It's all residentially zoned properties in the city. So it covers many, many properties.
I'm thinking specifically about some CMX 5 sections of the city, like Jewelers Row and all of Chestnut Street from 7th to Broad. You know, there's some buildings there that, you know, they're there now, but we want them to stay. So I wish they could be included in these incentives.
So for the uses, right, CMX 3 is, if you put them all together in a line, 1 is the least, it gives the least amount of commercial, 5 gives the most. This is in the middle, so having CMX 5 is already very good zoning where you're permitted almost every use you can have in the city, it wouldn't make any sense to drop it down to CMX3. CMX5 already has a great number of uses already. It's consistent with everything downtown.
I think maybe the confusing part, this is an incentive bill
Yeah.
to incentivize it. So 5 already has those incentives in there. So it's giving 3 and 2 more incentives to keep them. But 5 already has the incentives to keep them. Now, people may choose to demolish them also, but hopefully we could do that through historic designation and other things, and not so much by incenting them even more, because there's not much more you could do to incentivize a 5 building.
But sorry, and I apologize for doing this in a public format here, but so you're incentivizing, I mean, the CMX5 incentive is that, yes, you can go, bigger and more.
Higher, more.
But the point is to incentivize the preservation of these places instead of being like, oh, this is CMX5, I can, quadruple the size of my building if I knock it down instead of saving it, right?
You would still need to go to the Historic Commission to have, any additions to a CMX5 building, which could be a lot, they could be huge, or to demolish any of those buildings. The bill we're talking about, it only incentivizes the uses. So it's trying to preserve by giving a residential property owner more uses so that a church, which may be zoned residentially, doesn't have to be used as a single-family dwelling. It could be used for other uses, which would allow it to keep going and not have to be demolished.
I think you may be looking at restrictions,
Yeah.
trying to restrict 5 to things if it's historic or things like that. That's something we're looking into too as these bills move forward.
Which is a different issue.
Which is a different issue, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there other questions or comments? All right, thank you all. Anyone else here to testify on any of these 3 bills, 190611, 190612, or 190613? All right, please, if we could try to be as brief as possible, because we're really, as you see, a lot of people in here. Please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Greg Pastor. I live in Bella Vista. I was on the Zoning Code Commission and the Zoning Board, and I've actually taught L&I inspectors. So I just want to talk really briefly to some of the things that are technical aspects of the bills here that I can tell you if you pass it like this, you get 10 different answers from 10 different plans examiners. So taking these bills in order very quickly, 611, the notwithstanding clause in here is not necessarily going to hold up against a zoning overlay. And I think that needs to be either taken, it just has to be understood. And overlays are going to take precedence over this. And that is just something you should understand is going to happen and take that into consideration. Also, the portions of such buildings or structures that are not designated as historical or considered contributing, the way this reads, it's possible that you would get this this parking benefit from on a vacant lot in a historic district. I'm not sure that was what's intended. Maybe it is. I'm agnostic about what you're trying to do, but you should be clear on that. 612, the accessory dwelling unit, and again, I'm agnostic on this, but the way this is written, the way the code works as far as how it's laid out, this only holds for things that are semi-detached or detached housing. And that would be your Mount Airy, that would be lots of places out in West Philly, but it wouldn't be Ritfit or Society Hill. That may be what you intend, but the way this reads is if you're in a giant row house in Society Hill, you're an attached structure, you're not going to be able to have an ADU. Again, that may be your goal, is that they're not supposed to be in row houses, but you want to know whether or not you mean that.
You have anything else, sir? Why don't you let him finish?
Okay, are you done?
All right, and then 613 is more complicated, and so it's got a lot more sort of wrong with it. First of all, the Historical Commission just confirms to L&I, you need to say somewhere else in the code, maybe in 14-1000 or something, that this is something the Historical Commission does. There's no nexus, there's nothing here that would tell anybody at L&I to ask someone in the Historical Commission to tell them that, yeah, there used to be a store here, because Historical Commission stuff generally comes out of building permits instead of zoning permits. So you're going to have some kind of reference. It's also important for any code user to look at 14-1000 as the sum total of your zoning laws that relate to historical commission. This part about when they say whether a current or existing use is one of these many categories which allows you to get a CMX3 use, I don't know if that includes modern uses, I don't know if it includes variant uses. The way this reads now is if somebody in 2014 got a daycare, that's going to fall under public civic, institutional, which I believe, at least in my reading, is still in the legislation, and that just means you can have a hotel or a restaurant in that house in Society Hill. Again, I'm agnostic about it, but I think it's important for everybody to understand really what can come down the pipe, or you're going to have a lot of heartache going forward in a place like Society Hill. Forget the auto uses. Some other people have mentioned in the past, I think, that the idea of what's a less restrictive use is a very difficult thing to understand in the code. So the part about how you can get the CMX3 uses when they're less restrictive is something that probably needs a little more verbiage here. That may be simply that if you're in like RSA 5 or something, you get to have a single family house, which is no longer allowed in CMX3. That may be what you'd consider less restrictive. But that also is not clear. The part about the limitations and the exceptions not carrying over to, only carrying to the portion of the building that's already there, it's not clear whether, even with this amendment of 2,500 square feet, whether if the ground floor of a big building was 2,500 square feet and there was a store, are you allowed to have a hotel in the entire building? That's also not clear by the legislation. Regulated uses aren't in CMX3 anyway. That's belt and suspenders, which some people like. I just find that every time you put belt and suspenders in a code, you create questions down the line. The exception that says that it doesn't apply to use-specific standards or accessory uses in structures, an exception to an exception is always a difficult thing for L&I to understand. It's not clear about whether the use-specific standards say spacing for medical marijuana or something which is allowed in CMX3 by special exception would not kick in if that bill were, say, passed. Well, that's actually in the legislation now as far as as a spacing requirement. The same thing about roof decks for commercial use. Is
Sir,
an accessory
talk to
use.
us. Okay, talk to us.
I'm almost done.
Okay.
I'm almost
well,
done.
let me make it easy here. I think Councilman Squilla, I know, as stated before, this is an evolving process.
I understand.
And, all right, let me finish. I didn't interrupt you, okay? All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Councilman, I think if some of the concerns that are raised, I mean, we can always make certain amendments, certain changes.
And I willing to work with you too on specific language and work with planning and L&I to amend these bills as we move forward. You know, we're going to hopefully pass these out of committee, but looking to work on them continuously. So I'd be happy to sit down with you, go over what your concerns are. If they're not clear, if we can make them more clear, work with planning and L&I to make sure we're all on the same page. Because I think the intent, everybody understands the intent. And unfortunately, sometimes we do have unintended consequences when we do this, and then we have to try to go back. So the least unintended consequences we could come up with, we'll be happy to do that. And if you want to email me afterwards, we could set up a time to sit down and discuss it.
As an outsider, I just thought this was since it's in committee, I thought it was the proper venue to start the question about.
And as the councilman said, just something we're going to keep working on. All right, sir. Okay. Can we move forward, because we really have a lot of people here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the councilman has said he will continue to work with you.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here to testify on these three bills? Seeing none, Ms. Marconi, our next bill, please.
Bill number 190659, an ordinance establishing a neighborhood improvement district to be known as the Fishtown-Kensington Area Business Improvement District, in an area that generally includes both sides of Frankfort Avenue from the west side of Delaware Avenue to the south side of Lehigh Avenue, both sides of North Front Street from the north side of Poplar Street to the south side of Montgomery Street, both sides of East Girard Avenue from Frankfort Avenue, continuing to the west side of East Fletcher Street, the north side of West Girard Avenue from Frankfort Avenue to Front Street, and the south side of West Girard Avenue from Frankfort Avenue to Howard Street, on certain blocks of streets that intersect portions of these streets, designating the Fishtown Kensington Area Business Improvement District Incorporated, which has organized itself as a Pennsylvania nonprofit corporation as the Neighborhood Improvement District Management Association for the district, approving a plan for a report that concerning the district, authorizing the Director of Commerce on behalf of the city to execute an agreement with the Fishtown Kensington Area Business Improvement District Incorporated relating to the district, and authorizing the Fishtown Kensington Area Business Improvement District Incorporated to assess property owners within the district a special property assessment fee to be used in accordance with the approved plan, all in accordance with the provisions of the Community and Economic Improvement Act and under certain terms and conditions.
Mr. Marconi, why don't you call the names of who we have, and then I'm sure if there's more, on record.
Dennis Murphy, Kate Anderson, and Paul Kimport.
Is that who we have here? Okay, great. Ms. Murphy, why don't you start?
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of City Council. My name is Dennis Murphy. I'm the Director of Corridor Development within the Department of Commerce. I'm here to testify regarding Bill 190659, establishing the Fishtown Kensington Area Business Improvement District. Creation of bids is in keeping with our department's support of business and property owner-led efforts to improve the environment within their areas. With planning grant funding provided from our department to New Kensington CDC, property owners within the area have worked as a steering committee for the past year to explore creating a bid. The result of this process is the 5-year plan found within today's legislation. Creation of a bid to serve this area will benefit both businesses, property owners, and neighbors. The proposed bid includes an unusual concentration of small, independently owned and operated small businesses. Despite the growth of the area, many of these businesses still need the ongoing support with marketing, promotions, and advocacy that a business improvement district can provide. The area to be served by the proposed bid has become one of Philadelphia's most visited neighborhood dining and nightlife destinations. As we've seen in other areas of the city, it's much easier to manage the public safety issues, parking, and other issues associated with nightlife when there's a cohesive organization that includes property owners and the business community. We commend property owners and business people for addressing these challenges together. This important effort deserves your consideration. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we'll hear from all three, and both of you, I think we have your written testimony, so that will be totally part of the record. If you could summarize, we'd appreciate it. Please, into the microphone. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Chairman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I'd also like to thank Councilmember Squilla for helping to support this bill, sponsoring this bill. My name is Paul Kimport. I'm a Fishtown resident, and with William Reed, I am co-owner of Johnny Brenda's and the International, both of which are in the proposed service area of the Fishtown Kensington Area Business Improvement District. While the International is a relatively new venture, Johnny Brenda's has been partnering with the Fishtown community for over 15 years. Mr. Reed and I also own Standard Tap, a proud 20-year stalwart of the adjacent Northern Liberties neighborhood, which has just recently formed its own bid. It is our hope to form a business improvement district in the Fishtown, Kensington area and to connect resources with the Northern Liberties along the shared Front Street and Girard Avenue service boundaries. In Fishtown, Johnny Brenda's has grown from a small corner tavern with less than a dozen employees to a full-scale bar and restaurant with a nationally recognized independent music venue. It now employs over 40 staff members. I feel that the hospitality and food service industry can really help to express a community identity, and much of Johnny Brenda's success is in this connection to our neighborhood. I've tried very sincerely to identify my business with local pride. Many current and past employees have homes in Fishtown, and through the years, Johnny Brenda's has hosted numerous events to support local institutions such as Lutheran Settlement House and Urban Farms, Greensboro, and Emerald Street Community Farm, as well as organizations in the greater Philadelphia area like the Bicycle Coalition of Philadelphia and the Girls Rock Philly. We have spearheaded neighborhood cleanup and greening efforts and support Fishtown schools such as St. Laurentius, Hackett, and Adair. In 2003, Johnny Brenda's first year, I sat on the board of the Girard Coalition, a nonprofit whose primary mission was to connect multiple communities through a public transportation initiative. I felt that participating in collective planning along Girard Avenue corridor could help join Fishtown to adjacent neighborhoods, and that the strategic work from the larger united community could help us all. In 2006, with the help of encouragement of New Kensington Community Development Corporation, I started a neighborhood business association. Wisely, NKCDC's vision recognized the need for an organized and stable business community And then I chose the name Fishtown Area Business Association because I wanted a name that felt general, friendly, and inclusive. FABA was an active member, FABA was active for a number of years and served as a much-needed business networking organization. In 2016, I helped to create Fishtown Co., a business association which helps produce neighborhood seasonal events and also partners with Fishtown Neighborhood Association, public space projects together. Our primary goal has been to explore how to collectively handle some of the common issues, daily cleaning, improved lighting, and public safety, using our own investment of time and money. However, we have come to realize that our efforts alone are not adequate enough to, without forming a bid. We need to give greater structure to these efforts and provide the necessary support to make them ongoing and sustainable. I have served as the chair of the Fishtown-Kensington Area Bid Steering Committee for the last year. I strongly believe that Fishtown, like many Philadelphia neighborhoods, has a unique history and dynamism that exists between the commercial avenues and the residential community. Through the years, my work in the various community and business associations has reinforced my conviction that cooperation and shared visioning are essential to building a thriving neighborhood. I hope we can create a greater community through shared strategic planning and the targeted work of this bid. The bid will go for the best practice orthodoxy in conducting its efforts while also striving to express itself through diversity, creativity. We want to help protect and cultivate a unique, thriving, and proud, comfortable place. We know that both intentional planning and community engagement are needed to assure this dual goal of preserving values while improving a community vision together. Kay Anderson from NKCDC will now speak about our planning process for this bid. We also have other supporters here that have offered verbal and written testimony at the discretion of the Rules Committee. And we will continue to share with our council members copies of ballots from our growing list of supporters, businesses and property owners alike, now representing more than 90 properties, as well as support letters from local community organizations. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, again, we have your written testimony, okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and members of the Rules Committee. Just so everybody knows, my name's Kay Anderson. I work at New Kensington Community Development Corporation. I've served as the Director of Economic Development there for the last 2.5 years. In addition to being an assessment-paying organization through 3 properties located at 2513, 2610, 2612 Frankfurt Avenue, NKCDC has assumed responsibility for managing the corridors of the Fishtown-Kensington area for over 10 years, primarily through funding from the City of Philadelphia based on the community block grant eligibility. As we know, over the next 2 to 3 years, new census data will be coming out, and we expect a lot of our funding to decrease for the Fishtown area specifically. Those funds are currently being used to do programs like street cleaning as well as our targeted corridor management program. The bid boundaries cover Frankfurt Avenue from Delaware to Lehigh, North Front Street from Poplar to Montgomery, Girard from Front to Aramingo, and this is about 790 assessed properties with 325 current active businesses, including restaurants, retail services, office space, boutique hotels, and a small number of remaining manufacturers, as well as community-based organizations. This area includes the 26th District Police Station, as well as the very busy Girard L Station as well. The bid aims to help improve and manage the Girard L stop and all other busy gateways to the district to ensure a safe and positive experience as folks come in and out of our district. Over the past approximately 18 months, our group has engaged with a bid consultant that has led for the creation of the new Northern Liberties bid, which is directly adjacent to our boundaries and has held large introduction to bid meetings in July 2018 with more than 70 attendees, applied for and received a $25,000 planning grant from the Philadelphia Department of Commerce, formed a steering committee that has met monthly since September 2018, launched a website for all materials and meetings to be shared online in the fall of 2018, which has had 300 unique visitors to date, conducted a needs assessment survey completed by 529 people, including the 88 commercial property and business owners in the study area, formed a 5-year bid plan and budget based on the survey responses, presented the plan at several business and community meetings, as well as emailed updates to a large network of business owners, held 2 community meetings in the spring with a combined attendance of more than 80 people to present the plan for feedback, small meetings, and conducted a corridor walk to reach approximately 40 more businesses and property owners over the summer. Mailed the bid packet to 2,200 owners and tenants in our 790 property bid area in order to increase the chances for reaching the affected property owners and their tenants. We held one more community meeting in September after the bid packet mailing went out with another 25 attendees, and since then have also distributed FAQs and other general information flyers to all the commercial properties in the bid 2 times leading up to today's hearing. Our budget of $544,000 for year 1 includes $202,500 for cleaning, maintenance, and greening, $36,140 for capital improvements and parking to be used for base funding to pair with outside grants, $66,000 for economic development such as business recruitment and retention, and public safety, $47,000 for marketing and promotions for the district, $192,000 for administration, including 2.5 staff people to manage the bid's programs and operations, and our year 1 assessment rate is approximately 0.18% with a cap of 2.5% of the budget and a minimum of $365 for any property with a structure. The bid will also be governed by a 15-member volunteer board with 80% representation from the neighborhood, and Council President Clark, Councilmember Quinones-Sanchez, and Councilmember Squilla have all expressed interest in being on the board as well. The overall budget is limited to a maximum of a 3% annual increase in order to limit increases for property owners over the 5-year term of the bid. And at the end of each year, an independent audit will be performed and presented to the assessment payers at an annual meeting. We hope that this bid is successful and that the Fishtown-Kensington area can continue to grow through private investment, and we applaud our fellow property owners for their willingness to contribute to the common good.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all the work you're doing up there. If there's no questions or comments, I know and also we should let the record reflect all right, hold on. The Council President Clark is also present. Here's what I would like to do with the committee. Ms. Kimport mentioned there was a lot of people here for verbal or written support. Are there people here opposed to this bill? Okay, all right, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have the people who have concerns to come up, give their testimony, hear from them, and then figure out where to go from there, okay? But again, thank you all for your work. So I think I saw 2 hands raised, is that right? 2, okay, please. 3? Oh, I didn't say, okay, over there. Again, please come forward. And sir, you come up too. The numbers are growing, I think I see 4. Please, have a seat.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is a low chair.
All right. Please, identify yourself and proceed, please.
Good morning. My name is Zoe Schisler, and I reside in Fishtown. And I'm familiar with the bid. It was introduced to us some time ago. My concern, and the concern of the many people that belong to the Fishtown neighbors, but live in Fishtown for some years, is our neighborhood is becoming not itself. We're losing a residential stock. We're not gaining a residential stock. We're losing a residential stock because the corridors, Frankfurt Avenue and Girard Avenue, east and west, have become businesses that attract a lot of tourists. That's wonderful, at the place where those tourists are, which is the connecting of the Front Street, Girard Avenue, and Frankfurt, down where Frankfurt Hall, Johnny Brenda's, the garage. That area does need help. It needs a BID. Those are large businesses with, when I say thousands of people there on a weekend, I'm not exaggerating. As you come up Girard Avenue, for instance, the 700 block, those are residents. Now, I know residents won't be taxed and they won't have to contribute, but as that business lane encroaches, it's taking away residential stock. And as that lane encroaches on those avenues, it comes in too. That takes away residential stock. Half of my block, and that's Burke Street, half of my block are people who have moved in because, thank God, we've got much better schools. We've got much better amenities. We've got a lot to offer to residences who have kids. But you're not going to attract residences with kids to those blocks if they've got large businesses and the problems that come with large businesses half a block away from their home. So I say those areas in Fishtown, by the intersection of transportation, They do need bid. But above Columbia Avenue on Girard and above Columbia Avenue on Frankfurt, you can go as far as you want on Front Street, that needs everything. Above those two streets, you have a lot of people who might be exempt because they live there, but I'll give you one example, but I can give you 5 of the same examples in that 4-block radius. We have senior who lives in house A, he owns house B, it's a family house, been there forever. These people aren't making $1,000 a month. The city's killing him on house B taxes. He can't even afford to do the survey to make the both properties into one. He don't have that kind of money. But he has both of those. He's going to be disadvantaged again. He's already disadvantaged by the tax. He's going to be disadvantaged again by now having the bid come into his life. What we want on a bid, or don't come that far north, things are going to change over time, and not over 20 years, probably over less than 10. Let them change more naturally. Don't force it down the resident's throat again.
Okay, thank you. All right, whoever would like to go next, and if there's any questions, we'll have it after all you heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Bossard. Thank you for allowing me to speak. The first reason for opposition to the proposed Fishtown-Kensington Area Business Investment District refers to the 795 affected property owners. They include both commercial property owners and residential who rent the property, as Ms. Schissler mentioned. And I did a short survey on my own after realizing that this proposal was going before the council. It was just before the last meeting, before the September 24th community meeting. I found the notice in the mail and went and asked the property owners of properties located near and where the one my family owns, and I was only able to find 2 property owners who were aware that this was happening out of the 20 that I spoke with in my immediate area, and one of them is actually one of the advocates representing himself here today. And the other was actually opposed to it. So of the 20 people I spoke to, 19 were opposed to it, and I had only done a really brief search, like based on the awareness of the situation that as I was made aware at the end of September. And at that point, I had already been too committed for the date in question of the final meeting on September 24th to attend that. So this has really been my first opportunity to speak publicly and share other concerns other than inadequate notification to the affected property owners. The second one is really to the point of the self-imposed tax, and that it should not come as an external vehicle to people who are unaware that they're volunteering to allow a self-imposed tax. So that should be something done organically and collectively by the 795 property owners as they need to, together unifying them. If we do have a common need, then we would recognize that on our own and we would create this. But like 90 business property owners within 795 doesn't represent the majority of us, and the rest of us may not even. I don't want a self-imposed 1.8% property tax on top of my ceiling-less property taxes. There's no limit to OPA right now. I don't see anything being discussed about what to look forward to in terms of what would rein in the realistic expectation of like normal property tax increases. They could go on indefinitely for all I know, and they have been consecutively for years. So a surcharge on top of that seems really unnecessary right now, and especially one that I'm not able to affect any accountability for the quality of the services and the people in charge of making those promises come true. They're not elected, they're not representative of me, and they wouldn't represent anybody under the way that the BID is designed. Nobody will ever have elective representation through that group. And the other thing I don't like is that it gives the FKA BID permission to lien us if we decide to financially opt out. They'd be able to lien our properties. And maybe in 20 years' time, when our children are ready to inherit things or we're selling things to pay for medical bills, that they would have a windfall of money from numerous liens of all 795 property owners if we did all opt out and protest. I feel like it's like they're trying to win the lottery without really fully explaining to everybody what is the advantage of this risk. The risk-reward balance has not been presented objectively enough for 795 people to make an educated decision. And the risk is substantial to us and to our heirs and to subsequent uses of the property. And our property is actually rented right now. So I did ask the business owner renting the space, and she feels that the small footprint of the space occupied by our property is potentially maxed out as far as she can tell. She gets a very high cost per service in her service-oriented, no inventory-intense business. She spends approximately the same amount of money that the tax would demand, which is about $1,000 a year if you base it on the current property value of that space. She spends about $1,000 a year in cleaning and landscaping and safety, and she feels as though it would dilute her ability to provide those things and assurance of that square footage by giving it to somebody else to take administrative and operational costs out of the quality of how far her $1,000 a year goes to make sure that it looks good, it's clean, and it's safe, and that she's on top of those external things related to having a successful business on such a small square foot area. And she's not alone. Many of the properties are just as small of a footprint, and they don't represent the same needs as the much larger businesses also that were mentioned by Ms. Schisler. It's very difficult economically to maximize, your return on a small footprint and to share the costs and the burdens that are really limited to a handful of the much larger businesses, and also to not recognize how important these small businesses are to the unique landscape that make it a foot traffic friendly and safe place where people like to live. To come behind their purview and awareness and charge them more as a sort of, almost could be perceived as a punishment, an obstacle to their success, even though they're part of the greatness of the character and the wealth of the community that makes people, whatever obstacles residential new homeowners have, they at least like the area because of these unique businesses. These are not franchises and cookie cutters.
That's right.
Ma'am, I understand. I want to hear from the other people, though, too, okay?
I could say more, but thank you
sure,
so much.
I'm sure you could. I know you're on a roll there, but please, I just want to, in interest of time, as I keep saying, we have a lot of people here. Ma'am, please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Good morning. My name's Mary Ann Lero. I'm a property owner, a commercial property owner on the 600 block of Girard Avenue. And to kind of just piggyback off of that conversation, I also oppose the bill. And I think from my angle, I'm actually questioning the sustainability of the funds going into the neighborhood, only because Fishtown and the adjacent areas that are under discussion do border the opioid epidemic areas of Kensington. So are the funds that are going into this bill and the rejuvenation of the area, are they actually going to be sustainable when the neighboring shadow areas are still being highly developed? There are still a lot of areas where rundown houses are not being taken care of, and demographics kind of speak for themselves when you look into these areas and say some people are just not taking care of their homes, the streets are not really being well kept. So are these funds going to actually result in upkeeping the area the way that we want it to look, or is it kind of like a long way out from the beauty that we want it to be currently?
Let me hear from the gentleman back there who's also, I think, in opposition. Then if there's any questions or comments, we'll try to address them. Please. Thank you. The rest of you can just stay there. Can just stay in the area. Right there. There you go. Okay, thank you. And let me, before you start, sir, if there's other people here that want to testify in support, are there? All right, that's too many hands. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Okay? If you could work out with yourselves, Ms. Gillinger, please. We had 4 people here. I want to be fair. Could you pick 4 people to come up and express the other position? Because otherwise we're going to be back and forth all day. Okay? 4 people. I'll leave it up to you, Renee, to figure it out. Okay, sir, please.
Hi, my name's Murat Aratan. I own a property on Gerard Avenue. In fact, I own the property right next to Johnny Brenda's, next to Paul. He is my direct neighbor. I've never once heard anything about this until a couple weeks ago. You think he would just come next door and talk to me or my tenant about what he's trying to push through here? No, not once. He says he's what a bunch of sham. What a bunch of lies and deceit that this group has put forward. They haven't gone talk to nobody. They've got all the time in the world. You think they'd walk up and down Gerard Avenue and Frankfurt Avenue and talk to the people that have the businesses and properties? No. In fact, I did my little walk around also, and out of 20, 30 people that I talked to, they're just hearing about it now. We're all working people. We don't have time to go to these meetings for these do-gooders, so-called do-gooders, because they claim they're speaking for us. I didn't elect him. I didn't elect Paul to be Fishtown's mayor. Nobody elected him. He's Johnny Brenda, and he's the only one pushing this through because of his business and his chaos that he creates on his corner. Not the outskirts of Gerard Avenue or Front Street or Frankfurt Avenue. All these mom and pop shops. They're not represented by him. He doesn't speak for us. In fact, he doesn't even speak for me. I live right next door. And this undemocratic process that we have going on here, of you have to opt out? How wrong is that? You don't even vote for it to come in.
Point of
you have
information.
to opt out.
Point of
Hold on
information.
1 second. Councilman Squilla?
It's a state ordinance,
right.
It's a state mandate. We've actually worked, it used to be 50%. Because of the opt-out procedures, it's now only a third. So only a third of the people have to opt out to defeat it. So talking about a democratic process, it actually benefits the people who oppose it than the people who actually support it. So if there's a third of the people that support it, this cannot move forward. So it does give you that ability to oppose something, and only a third of you have to oppose it, and then this bill cannot move forward under any grounds. So I understand your opposition, and we try to be neutral in this case, but there is a process to defeat it if there's a lot of people that you say do not want this and nobody knew about it. So I think that's something. There is also, we're going to have somebody come up and answer if there's notices that have been sent out to all the property owners on this. So
That's what I'd like to do, because I know the concern was raised about people knowing. Ms. Gillinger, I don't know, I just want one statement on how the notices were sent out, okay? You want to do that? If you could just come forward and put on the record. I'll be happy to. Because that has been raised, I think, a couple. If one of you could just move for, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then stay there in case there's other questions or concerns.
My name is Renee Geilinger. I'm the consultant for this Business Improvement District.
Sit down, Renee.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ellen. Since about the summer of last year, we have held 4 large bid-specific meetings, and I would say about 4 or 5 smaller meetings for businesses or invites to other meetings, a RCO meeting, and we've hand-delivered flyers along the entire area of the boundaries before each one of those meetings. So that's a total of 4 drops, 5 full area hand delivers, 4 direct mail pieces to anyone that is not in the Business Improvement District outside of the packet mailing. So that was 1 before our survey, 1 before our first community meeting, 1 before our second community meeting. And I have spoken with some folks here, and they do recognize people get a lot of mail. So we understand that is difficult as well. So that's 4 direct mail pieces, 4 large community meetings, and then I've done another 2 full distributions of our budget and services with the assessment rate, and a frequently asked question document that it kind of addresses a lot of these things. I'm making notes. I'm going to do another one on some of these things too, just to clarify that we do have board elections and that there is oversight into some of the things that I know that are difficult always to convey along the way, because these things are complicated. So I'll do another one of those. So it's full, I want to say full literature drops maybe 7 times now.
Between mail and
Between,
hand drop?
Yeah, 4 direct mail pieces, 7 literature drops.
And the 4?
Yes.
7 literature drops.
She's a
liar.
Wait, sir, we don't operate like that, okay? Nobody interrupts anybody, okay? Everybody has a chance, and you don't call people names. That's not the way we work in here, okay?
And
Please.
I have also collected support ballots from every sort of area of the bid boundary, just as I look at these things to make sure that I'm getting communication back and I'm getting attendance at meetings from all the different areas of the district. East Girard specifically, every time I have been told that there's an area that maybe folks don't know, Kay just went out on Friday again herself to go talk to businesses. You know, I know that folks get inundated with things. And that it's difficult. For the packet mailing, that was sent to every address in the bid, both to the owner and to a tenant, 325 identified businesses, as well as another 75 just tenant if we weren't sure who's there. It was sent to all of the OPA mailing addresses, was sent to the upstairs tenants. I had 2 people come to a meeting last week. They got 4 at their property to different, the business, the owner, the tenant, the upstairs tenant. I really did my best. So out of 790 properties, that's 2,200 packets mailed out.
And the direct mail was sent to the registered owner of the property?
To the OPA mailing address, and then also I have
Right.
about 35 alternative mailing addresses that I've found from mail coming back, because OPA mailing addresses aren't always perfect, as we know. So we do our best to look those up. But I can tell you I managed a bid for 8 years, and that takes sometimes years to find people if
Gotcha.
the addresses
Okay.
are wrong.
I think Councilwoman Reynolds Brown had a question, Councilwoman?
I do. Good morning, good morning. Clearly understanding Councilman Squilla is the sponsor of the bill's intentions and objectives. Nothing is 100%, but we need to get as close to that as possible.
Yes, I understand.
And so that because what's happening in these neighborhoods is real, and we need to be sensitive to that. So 75% doesn't get us there, 80% doesn't get us. It really needs to be 90 or 95% to ensure that citizens who pay their taxes and do the right thing are not walked over by anybody, and most importantly, government. And so I need to know what has been the interface, the partnership, the coordination, the linkage with the city agency that knows where everybody is, be it L&I or health, to ensure that we get to that 90 or 95%.
The only data that I am provided is the Office of Property Assessment data. I don't know any way to get other data, but I'll take it if I can have it. But like the Revenue Department, we're not able to get access to that, to their mailing lists and to that data. The only data that we get on our own from the City of Philadelphia is from the Office of Property Assessments, because that is how we base everything off of their evaluation of these properties. Everything else we do on our own, just through our own sleuthing and our own homework and our own just, looking things up as people do. I don't know of any other way. Dennis Murphy is here from Commerce, and maybe he can answer that, but, it's a conversation we all have a lot.
I have a follow-up. You're the professional, and I understand, I started out doing knocking on doors and, in your face, on the front line kind of activism. So what type of feedback do you require of those that you touch? Because that's where you can only measure the level of touching that you've done. So, is there something in those packets that say, please get back to us, please affirm that you got it, please let us know that you're interested?
So one thing that we added before my last effort at creating a business improvement district was to add a final community meeting and to tie it to the packet drop, because things that come in the mail that have the word Fishtown on them, we have a lot of RCOs, we have a lot of things going out all the time.
Sure.
So they're not always, and Amanda and I have spoken about this, that I did check. She got 4 pieces of mail sent to her, and we all get a lot of mail. So that was one thing that Council President Clark's request before I worked on Northern Liberties, that we had that last meeting. So that postcard was sent to everybody in advance of the packet drop to come to this meeting with the packet and ask all the questions, because now this big scary document just came from the clerk's office, and it is sometimes the first thing people see. People call me, our phone number is on everything, and I've gone to meet with a ton of businesses now. Kay Anderson from NKCDC is here. She went out on another quarter walk on Friday, so she's walked East Girard, the northern end of Frankfurt Avenue, before we expanded our boundaries to Lehigh. Kay went door to door to each one of those businesses where she's worked for 7 years. She's been with NKCDC. So anytime there's any sort of change that we make or any sort of area that we feel like maybe we don't have enough of the outreach done, or I'm not seeing like support ballots from that area, we have gone out in person just to go talk to people again. One more flyer drop with our phone number. I've spoken with a lot of people. I was on the phone yesterday. I mean, people call. It's not that they're not getting the information, because I'm definitely talking with folks, meeting with folks at their businesses, and between the two of us, we're pretty accessible to get to someone's place of work in a pretty quick time.
But that's helpful to know. It is important for citizens in that community to know that the level of because it has to be layered, period. I mean, you just, social media doesn't get us there, and snail mail doesn't get it there. It really has to be a blend of the two in this new world that we live in.
Yes, I mean, we've had social media, and we've had, we have a website, and we have, there's actually been 1,300 people come on that website, and I checked, and they're from Philadelphia. So we have all those things, but I managed a district for 8 years, and so I know that like paper in the shop is usually the best way to get things to business owners, because it comes, now granted they get a lot of paper, but that's why I'm always doing these hand deliveries into the businesses, into the place of business, because that just tends to often just be the thing that they see the most.
Sure.
The one I did on last week was in full color, our budget, our assessment rate, the phone number's on there, the website's on there. I've really just done my best, and I'm going to do one more. I'm going to try to answer some of the questions that were brought up today, because obviously there's still time for people to object.
Very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, here's what I'd like to do. If the four that said they wanted to speak in support, I'd like them to come up, and we don't want them back and forth, because we'll be here all day. I appreciate all your comments.
I got one thing to
Just
say.
very quickly, sir, please.
I don't know this. I live right next door to Johnny Brenda's, and not one person has ever come.
Okay.
And just recently, we've come to find out that this group is working towards a 2% tax on our property. They didn't say that before the whole 2 years, not until just recently. Now we're finding out, they're not just going around and talking to people saying, we want to be doing this and this for your community. They never once say, would you like your tax raised? Not once.
All right, sir, I got you.
So they can go talk all their stuff they want and saying how great they're going to do, but they don't say what they're actually going to do. The first sentence they should say is, I want to come raise your taxes.
Hold, please. Not everybody can talk at the same time. We gave everybody a chance to speak. I'm going to give one more panel, ma'am, really, because then somebody else will want to speak. One more panel the chance to speak, briefly, okay? I want everybody to be brief. And then the
I
panel,
just have a question.
we got to make a decision.
When do you want our petitions, and where do we deliver them?
You can deliver them to me as the chair or the, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
They get mailed to the clerk's office.
Oh, that's right, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Point of information, they get mailed to the clerk's office, and anybody who has information or needs information on opposing it, you could reach out to our office, email me or my...
When's our deadline on that, Councilman?
Yep, 45 days.
From here. Got it. Thank you.
45.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. We got 4 people, and I'm really asking you to be brief. Really brief, please. All right, because the folks have presented the case already, but I'm giving you a chance just... All right, I see 3 coming up. Is that it? Got one more? One more. Come on up. One more. One more. Thank you. Not 6 or 7, because otherwise we're going to have a back and forth, and that's not fair to people, okay? Please, identify yourself and proceed.
Hi, my name is Lisa Mazzola. I'm the owner of Mazzola & Company on Front Street. I'm here to testify in support of Bill 190659, establishing the Fishtown-Kensington Area Business Improvement District. I could read you my statement, but I'm not going to. I'm going to address the 4 people who just spoke here who clearly must have had their head in the sand for the past year, because since
Ma'am, really? We're not going to go insulting people back and forth. I called him on calling somebody a liar.
I'm
Please don't
insulting them.
Just
I'm
speak.
saying
Speak the
that
facts. Get the facts out. That's all, please.
Here are the facts. The
Okay,
facts
thank
are
you.
the facts are that this organization is a elected organization. People are elected. That means you volunteer. I guess that the people who were not here, who didn't know about it, purposefully did not choose to volunteer their time to support this organization, to support this neighborhood. This neighborhood needs support and they need time, Councilman Brown. They need to put energy forth. People who are not paying attention, who are not volunteering their time, who are not going to meetings, who are not opening their mail and receiving it. I am a recipient of those mailings. I live in Fishtown and my business is on North Front Street. I see the trash that is all over the streets that no one takes care of, abandoned lots across the street from our business that is owned by the city that no one takes care of. And the only thing that is going to get this done is the bid. We absolutely need the support of people like myself who have been volunteering for many years in the Fishtown area to make this a better place. I spend the time, I clean the streets with the 26th district, I go to meetings, I take my own free time to be informed. And I think that that should count more than people who don't read, who don't care, who don't spend time to go to these meetings. And I really think I should be allowed the same 7 minutes that Amanda received.
People not caring, they have the right to their opinion, you have the right to yours, and that's the way we're going to do it. So I'd like to move to the next people, please. Thank you. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Certainly. Good morning, Chairman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. My name is Seth Schwarzman, and together with my wife, Lynn Buono, I own Feast Your Eyes Catering in Front and Palmer, an event venue within the proposed Fishtown, Kensington area Business Improvement District. We're located literally at Front and Palmer Streets, directly across from Kensington Kappa, where we arrived 10 years ago in 2009 after having been in Northern Liberties for 20 years. We employ about 45 people full-time. Over the years, besides my position on the bid steering committee, my wife Lynn and I have been involved with various community organizations and projects, including La Dame d'Escoffier Scholarship, the Lighthouse, Fishtown.co. I'm on the board of the Northern Liberties CDC, which has not really been active for many years, the Sustainable Business Network, and neighborhood projects such as the South Kensington Community Partners Outdoor Dinner for 300 on American Street, along with assisting Kensington Kappa and other organizations as needed. I'm proud to say the 26th Precinct recently honored Feast Your Eyes at their most recent annual gala for our work with them and the community relations officers for over 20 years. Not quite 3 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce held their most successful event ever that was held outside of Center City. It was held at our place at Front and Palmer. We saw this as a sign of what was to come for the Fishtown, Kensington area. Until then, our neighborhood was viewed as outer Siberia by the business community, and now we were part of an expanded Center City. As Fishtown and surrounding neighborhoods have exploded in popularity, that's only become more true. As Philadelphia works to bring the economic vitality of Center City to outlying neighborhoods, it's important that neighborhoods like ours be able to invest in improving their future. And that's what this bid will do for Fishtown, Kensington area, and of course we support it. A business improvement district does much more than just keep the streets clean, of course, but as reflected in our proposed budget, it's top of the project list. Not only will an established bid make a difference in the physical condition of our district, but visible bid workers cleaning the streets will also create a positive sense of community, along with the proposed plans for street furniture, neighborhood branding, and special event coordination. It's to our advantage at Front and Palmer to have clean streets for guests to drive down on their way to us. But more than that, we believe thriving communities, neighborhoods that are both self-sustaining with a wide variety of businesses serving local residents and an attraction to visitors are a benefit to Philadelphia overall. The Fishtown Kensington area bid will help make this happen. We are committed to helping this effort succeed now and as the bid does its work in the years to come. Lynn and I appreciate the assistance provided by Council President Clark, Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez, Councilman Squilla, and their staff, and request your support in authorizing the Fishtown Kensington area bid. You have my full testimony.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. That may be part of the record. Thank you very much. And let me just say, the people who, other people that wanted to speak, if you just put your name in, and if you have any written comments, they will also be part of the record. But again, we're trying to move this process along. Ma'am, if you could take one of these seats up here, and ma'am, you please state your name and proceed, please.
Good morning, Chairman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I'm Bianca DiPietro. I'm the owner of Twal on Frankfurt Ave. I I'm a small retail store. I've been open over 6 years now. I've been living in Fishtown for 12 years. I feature all local designers, and I can probably say I'm one of the smallest businesses in Fishtown, and I highly support the bid, mainly because we've been trying for many years to do so many things that are just not able to get done. I work 15-hour days. I run everything by myself, so taking 4 hours to come here today is actually hurting my business, but that's how important it is for me and for a lot of other small business owners that we actually get this done. Just to reiterate to anyone who has questions about it, residents do not get taxed. This is solely business owners and commercial properties. So I understand it's very heated, and I apologize for everyone getting very upset, but it's a passionate
We're used to hearing
discussion.
upset. It's part of the job.
So, I mean, we can't, the bid, again, is not something that controls the development of the area. Obviously, the development and bursting development in Fishtown is a hot topic right now, but this is to ensure that all the development that happens is being put to a good use and taking care of the area. I mean, Old City, Center City, Head House District, they all have bids that help the areas, and Fishtown deserves that same opportunity. I think a big part that concerns me is retail retention and recruitment for the area. We have a lot of vacant spaces right now, and having a bid will really help bring quality businesses to the area. And there's a lot of small independently owned businesses just like myself, but like I said, I'm a one-woman run business, and there's only so many things I can do in the hours of a day, and the bid would definitely help out myself as well as a lot of other business owners in Fishtown.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time coming down here. Ma'am, please, our final.
Hello,
witness,
my
please.
name is Stephanie Lee Ryan. I am co-owner of Joe's Steaks and Soda Shop in Fishtown, and I am in full support of this bid. I started out at our original location about 15 years ago. That shop opened up in 1949, and business was, great in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s. But I watched firsthand what could happen to a neighborhood without the support and services that a bid could offer. I watched the neighborhood diminish, small businesses close down and leave. Even the post office and the deli and the florist, just the neighborhood, it lost a lot of residents, and in turn the corridor lost a lot of its businesses. I'm just here to say I think the bid is a really good thing for the neighborhood of Fishtown. With the increase in traffic, especially on the weekends, just the cleaning and the safety measures that the bid would offer would just take a lot off our shoulders as small business owners, just to help to keep the neighborhood clean and safe, and keep the momentum going, but in a safe way where it helps everyone, residents and business owners alike.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, just to reiterate, for people who have opposition to this, Councilman, correct me if I'm wrong, 45 days to communicate to the chief clerk, room 402, City Hall, any opposition to this, okay? So that's the law, that's, I believe, the state regulation, so you have time to do that. So again, I appreciate everybody else coming down. Councilman?
That information is available on our website as well. There's a button that says objection.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, please, in the
That
microphone.
information is also available on the homepage of our website, fishtownbid.org, and there's a button it says objection in the button for the cover letter that was sent out in the packet. Anyone can also contact me. My cards are here. I'll give them out. You can ask anyone that's called. I explain thoroughly the objection process, so I want everyone to be well informed.
And our office will also assist
Yes.
in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our next bill. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Now, let's get more people mad at me. Our next bill, please.
Bill number 190660, an ordinance establishing a neighborhood improvement district to be known as the South Philly Market District in an area that generally includes both sides of South 9th Street from the south side of Fitzwater Street to the north side of Federal Street, both sides of Christian Street from west side of South 7th Street to east side of South 10th Street, both sides of Montrose Street from South 8th Street to South 10th Street, both sides of Carpenter Street from South 8th Street to South 10th Street, both sides of Washington Avenue from west side of South 8th Street to east side of South 11th Street, both sides of Ellsworth Street from East Passyunk Avenue to South 10th Street, both sides of East Passyunk Avenue from south side of Washington Avenue to north side of Federal Street, both sides of South 10th Street from the south side of Christian Street to the north side of Ellsworth Street, both sides to South 8th Street, between the south side of Christian Street and the north side of Carpenter Street, and between the south side of Washington Avenue and the north side of Ellsworth Street, the west side of South 8th Street between the south side of Carpenter Street and the north side of Washington Avenue, and certain blocks of streets that intersect portions of these streets designating the South Philly Market District Incorporated, which has organized itself as a Pennsylvania nonprofit corporation as the Neighborhood Improvement District Management Association for the district, approving a plan for the district including a list of proposed improvements and their estimated costs, and providing for assessment fees to be levied on property owners within the district, authorizing the Director of Commerce on behalf of the city to execute an agreement with the South Philly Market District Incorporated relating to the district, and authorizing the South Philly Market District Incorporated to assess property owners within the district a special property assessment fee to be used in accordance with the approval plan, all in accordance with the provisions of the Community and Economic Improvement Act and under certain terms and conditions.
Okay, before we start with these two witnesses, looks like there's a lot of people opposed here. About how many people want to speak in opposition to this? Well, okay, all right, we're going to try to cut that down a little bit. Who is here other than here to speak in support? Are there any other people speaking in support? Okay. Here's what I'm going to ask, similar to what we did last time, okay? Because I know after a while people basically say the same thing. We'll have two panels, one in favor, one opposed, okay? You could pick 4 people on both sides, okay? 4 people. Those of you who don't get a chance to testify personally, please get your name in to me or to councilmen. They will be made part of the record. If you have any written testimony, either way, that would also be part of the record. So what we're going to do is hear from these 2 gentlemen, then we're going to hear from a panel of 4 people who are opposed to the plan, and then 4 people that support the plan, and we're going to call it that way. Because otherwise, we're going to go back and forth. Councilman?
Yeah, and also I just want to state for the record that we had these bids go out throughout the council and throughout votes. Some are supported, some are opposed, some pass, some fail. And we just want to make sure, if we can, just keep it as calm as possible and as respectful as possible, even though you're upset or you're opposed or supportive. We don't want to go back and forth like we did last time with actually making it personal. That's all.
Thank you. And Mr. Anastasio, you have quite a long testimony, so I would appreciate
I'm going to wrap it up.
shortening that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
very good. Mr. Murphy, why don't you start?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of City Council. My name is Dennis Murphy. I'm the Director of Corridor Development with the Department of Commerce. I'm here to testify regarding Bill 190660, establishing a business improvement district called the South Philly Market District to serve the area in and around the 9th Street Market. Creation of bids is in keeping with our department's support of business and property owner-led efforts to improve the environment within their areas. Over the past year, property owners within the proposed bid have worked as a steering committee to explore creating a bid. The result is today's legislation, including their 5-year plan. 9th Street is a unique destination that serves neighbors, shoppers from throughout the city, and tourists. The shared challenges of trash, parking, and blight and the appearance of the area are the kinds of things that bids are often organized to address. These kinds of challenges are best addressed in a coordinated and cooperative way, and a bid is one proven way to do that. Long-term and consistent attention to conditions within the 9th Street area will be key to maintaining this unique area into the future. In other areas of the city, creating a bid has provided tremendous benefits to small business owners due to the advocacy and the staff attention that a bid can provide. This effort deserves your consideration. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Anastasio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As noted, I've submitted my written testimony, so I'll be
brief, but also informative of the process. I'd like to first and foremost thank Councilmember Squilla for his leadership and courage on this issue. My name is Vern Anastasio, and I chair the volunteer committee proposing the South Philly Market Improvement District. We started this process about 18 months ago, but in fact, it's 10 years in the making. It was first floated in 2009. Subsequently, there was a grant in 2010, I believe, and then in 2016, the bid was proposed. It did not succeed with about 34% of the property owners at the time in opposition. So what we did 18 months ago is speak to most of those folks who were in opposition, and we've revised our plan. I understand that there are folks here who are in opposition as well as support. There are 440 affected properties. Based on the surveys we have done, there's less than 50 folks who oppose this plan today. Let me speak to you about how we did our outreach, because I think that's most important. To date, we have held 4 large community-wide meetings for impacted property owners, those living within the district. We made available translation services and free childcare. We also mailed the full district plan and an additional 8 separate pieces of material in several languages to all impacted property owners. We also sent a separate mailing of each address and the amount of dues the owner would pay into the district plan. So that was never a hidden number. We employed canvassers, district ambassadors, leaflet droppers, many in several languages. We hosted a luncheon exclusively for the Asian property owners and merchants. We dispatched Spanish-speaking volunteers to engage Spanish-speaking owners, shopkeepers to personally engage them. And as I deliver this testimony this morning, 2 members of my staff are distributing additional flyers to the street, and will continue to do mailing to educate as many people as we can about the plan itself. The entire plan is also available at southphillybid.com and has been for quite some time. The plan has been changed based on the opponents of 2016 and their input. As a result of that meeting, we have, first, over the course of 5 years, we're going to invest over $500,000 in direct physical improvements to real estate that's owned by the paying members who fund the district. Dozens of boarded up properties and blighted commercial and residential properties will be transformed. Many more will benefit from connecting with existing municipal programs to improve their facades. All properties will be brighter, safer by lighting up the dark places and installation of security cameras. Dozens of dead, inactive, vacant curb stands, lots, and other areas will finally be activated and beautified with the money. Secondly, over $400,000 will be invested in addressing the decades-old dilemma of litter and commercial trash management along the service areas. Third, we'll dedicate thousands in special promotional programming that celebrates the culture of fine food and the diversity of the district. Lastly, our plan will finally direct shoppers in cars to the 4 parking lots in the service area with now absent signage. And it will launch a pilot valet parking program during daytime hours for visitors to the district. Today, we're not Fishtown. Today, the area is littered with blight. Boarded up windows, empty storefronts. Almost every month, another business closes. Falling fences, litter, trash, vacancy, filth are almost everywhere. Today, blight and garbage outnumber shoppers and visitors most days of the week. 116 years ago, folks took big steps, took risks, and came to that area. The second generation, the members of the greatest generation, their children, took a local market and made it nationally known. The third generation tried their best, but were too timid. Supermarkets and malls ended up dominating the scene. Walk 9th Street today. It's a patient on life support. Today, the fourth generation now sits before you. We are now ready, willing, and able to take the big risks and make the gigantic leaps of faith, to turn the tide and make the improvements so desperately needed. It's a risk worth taking and a leap of faith that future generations deserve. Please help us in doing so and move this legislation out of committee.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments? If not, again, thank you both. Thank you for the work you're doing. All right, for the opponents, you have your 4 people, please. 4 people. Please, come up. One, two. All right. I'm seeing 3, 4. Wait. 4 people, sir. 4. Work it out with yourselves, okay? I want to be fair to everybody. And for any supporters, same number, no more, okay? So, please, whoever would like to start, please speak right in the microphone. Identify yourself for the record and proceed. Sir?
My name is Mario Gerardo. I'm a merchant on South 9th Street for many, many years. And we are opposed to the bid program, as we were in 2016, because we don't feel that it's really going to help us. And I would also like to say that us that are opposed to it realize that whoever is for it, we respect that. But we also want them to respect the fact that we're opposed to it, because we don't feel like it's going to do us, any good that what it's going to cost. And as far as the opposition, Councilman Squilla said that we need 30% or 30-some% of the vote to oppose it. We have that. I have that right here in my bag. I have 50% that oppose it. And, by the time these 45 days go by, we're going to have much more. We're shooting for like 70% opposition to this. So, that's all I got to say.
Okay. I appreciate that. And again, any opposition can be expressed to the chief clerk, and that's the way the law works.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, please, state your name and proceed, please.
My name is Chao Hua. Good afternoon, Chairman. Yes, it's already afternoon.
Yes.
City councils, and good afternoon, everyone. The homeowners affected by the proposed Bill 190660, establishing a neighborhood improvement district to be known as the South Philly Market District Business Improvement District, BID, strongly oppose the increase in taxes. We are composed of nearly 160 residents, businesses, and property owners working together to ensure we are not burdened by additional taxes for the area, which may prevent growth in the community. We are writing to express our opposition for Bill number 190660 and believe individual businesses should be responsible for their advertising, promotions, appearance looks, and their trash. Adopting a bid in South Philly should require the approval of 80% of individual property owners and commercial properties. This high approval threshold would ensure the community approves of the changes and will not tear the community apart. This bid proposal information should be translated into Chinese and Vietnamese to ensure the Asian American community is fully informed of the effects of this bill. In the South Philly area, it is critical that the bids do not bankrupt homeowners and lose their home who are retired veterans or who have fixed income with severe medical conditions if they are to create a successful, diverse urban community. We strongly oppose the passage bill of number 190660 because it would not help to facilitate economic development, but would, one, displace local businesses and homeowners suffer as large competitors start opening shops. Two, remove community-focused culture and safety nets. And three, put undue financial burdens on the community. Thank you in advance for opposing Bill 190660. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, please identify yourself and proceed.
My name's Barry Walensky. I'm a third-generation business owner on Passyunk Avenue in the area that's proposed. First off, I want to thank the councilman, and I want to thank Vern for their ambitious efforts to move this forward. However, on any marketing plan, you should see if there's a need for it. And that step has been omitted for 3 tries so far. Furthermore, as a small businessman, the city is already in my pocket for at least 8 different licenses and fees. I understand this doesn't go to the city. Vern just mentioned that it's dues. Well, if it's dues, I don't want to join. I can't say it any more than that. I have a question in terms of we're allowed to send a letter to the clerk. I believe some letters have been sent. Is there a file that we can see of who has opposed this at this point?
Point of information, the vote doesn't start until after the hearing. All letters of opposition and information that goes to the clerk or delivered to the clerk would have to start. Once the hearing is completed.
Okay, so therefore, anything that has been sent in is null and void.
It's not, no, I mean, it can be
not-
part of
if
our...
he's not holding it.
Hold on a
Okay.
second. It can be part of our record here, I guess. We can make
Yeah,
it
it could
part
be
of our
part of our
record
record
here.
if we have-
But
if we
this
have
is a
copies
state
of it.
law, sir. This is state law.
Right.
So as the
It ha-
councilman is explaining...
Yeah, we're not, I mean, we could submit those to the clerk if we have them. So if not, they would have to be resubmitted during the 45-day period.
I understand
of
that,
opposition.
and what I am saying is I know people have mailed stuff in prior to this hearing or this discussion. What happened to them? Okay, so we have to resubmit them.
I received some emails of opposition. I've talked to plenty of members here, of people who are opposed, explained to them when they emailed me that the process of voting in opposition and told them they couldn't
I
really...
understand that.
Okay, well...
The question is, anything sent in prior to this, we have no record of.
Right.
Okay.
And if you have them today, the one gentleman said about having all kind of things, you can be put in today after the hearing, okay? Go ahead.
My other question in terms of the state law and opting out. Can a block opt out, or you have to opt out of the whole plan?
Say that again.
Repeat that.
In terms of the state law, which is what this is working under, can a block or an area of the 1100 block Passyunk Avenue, if we have 1/3 of the people, can they opt out of the plan?
No,
Okay.
Each individual, normally during the process of picking the boundaries, during the meetings, and then they feel that certain areas aren't part of it, or maybe it'll be too opposed of it, they move the boundaries around to take the people who are opposed out of it if they didn't want to be part of it.
But that's already set.
But once it's set, once
Okay.
the vote starts, it's set on those boundaries.
Okay.
And each individual has to opt out.
All right, so we're into, at this point, I assume our 45-day presentation period of abstentions are yes votes, correct? If someone doesn't vote, it's a yes vote.
Yeah, you have to oppose it. You have to
Opposed to
oppose
and
it.
opposed.
33%.
Okay, so I understand again, the state, has
Changed it from
changed the law to
50%
1/3.
to 1/3.
If you look at elections 1/3 of the people don't vote. 2/3 of the people do vote. So we're back to a 50% majority or minority of those who vote.
Except, point of information, when people are opposed to something, they come out. When people are in opposition, they vote. When they don't like you, they vote, or they're voting for somebody or against them. Opposition is easier garnered than support. If people support something, they say, yeah, I support it. They're not going to send a letter of support. But when you oppose something, believe me, I know, we get a ton of emails. If you're opposed to something, we know about it.
All right.
And I think that can be shown by all those signs that are up today, Councilman. Please.
That's it.
Is that it? Okay. All right,
One
sir.
more? We got 2 more.
No, you got one more. Got one more.
going.
Sir.
Good afternoon, Councilman Chairman Greenlee, Councilman Brown, and Councilman Squilla. First, I would like to thank Councilman Squilla that have open channel communication and guide us through the process of this bill. So we try to communicate with the sponsors of the bill in the beginning. And basically, after all the effort, outreach, and communicate, and basically now we have to come here to have conclusion that we have to object the bill to create the South Philly market bid.
You didn't have to come here today to oppose.
Correct.
Correct. You don't, right, you didn't have to. People who
but
aren't
this-
here could still oppose.
So first, the South Philly market is not for the market. I just want to make clear that that is discriminating and segregates the neighborhood. I mean that because the bill strips off the power of creating the market from the street vendor. They have no say about the bill, why they are a big contribution factor of that neighborhood.
Can I just correct that real quick?
Correct.
The vendors are not included in the curb stands are not included in the voting because they are not being assessed. So they do not have to pay, and so the people who do have to pay are the ones who have to vote.
That's why I say it's stripped of the power of creation of the bill. That
No.
means they cannot vote.
They're
Because they're not assessed.
Right. They would benefit from it if they have it, or they would, if they don't have it, either way, they don't have to pay in the
Yeah, I
process
don't say
of it.
pay or not, but they have no say about creating of the bid because they
Okay,
don't have
that's
assessment.
fair.
That's what
That's
I
fair.
say. And the second one is basically is the target, the rental property owner, because they not create the market. They are sideline. And basically the bid try to, I can say, is rob the money from these property owner to create the budget that you have right now for $450,000. Okay? They are not part of the market, and they have no benefit or very minimum benefit about the service from the bid. And that's why I raised the issues with the sponsor from day one. Should we pay for the service that we don't need? And that's why these people here say no. And besides, the assessment fee is basically around 15 to 20% of the property tax on top of that. This put the hardship to these property owner. And the problem of the whole thing is basically you create a budget big enough so you can extract more money, and the service is basically is either useless, we don't need it, or already duplicate in that bill. Marketing, event, you already have the Italian Market Association create Italian market event. They already have outreach, you have marketing, everything. Why you pay for money to do something already people already did? It's a waste money. Why you do that? So that's why I say it's the whole thing. The law is allow you to create the bid, but how you proceed with that is a big flaw. It's abuse. That is our opinion. And besides, the process of the bid is a big flaw too. Public meeting notice. Ask these people, did they know the public notice to go to the meeting? They don't. They don't know. The sponsors say they have the luncheon, free lunch. Okay? How many people show up? One. One person is me. That is, in fact, property. No one else. So don't tell me that they, like the previous bid, they go to each house, they send out everything, whatever they have. I don't know if they have it. I don't know if they know it. Some of the notice I not even receive it. My neighbor say, hey, Kat, did you receive the notice? I said, I didn't see it. So how you guarantee that all these notices go to the public, that the impact, in effect, so they can discuss the plan? No way.
Understood, and I know we've been in conversations through email for a while on this, so
Yes.
I appreciate your input and your concern.
All right, thank you.
And furthermore, it's basically the plan is big flaw. Nobody see the plan. The plan is never published until last month. Okay, nobody know it. And I mentioned to that several times. I confront with the sponsor. I say, you don't have the plan. I request personally the plan. Go to the public meeting, say, please send me a plan. No response. Why they hide the plan? Why they hide all this information? The outreach they send out, I receive it. You know what they said? No tax increase. That's this information. They never mention about the assessment fee on top of the tax. Another 15–20% on top of the tax. This is what kind of information they send out to the public. That is the problem. So the whole process, the whole flaw is a big problem
Understood.
around the community.
We'll have them answer those questions.
Sure.
So we're going to have the other group come up. Sir, we want to move on, okay? I think you
On
made
last
your statement.
items.
Please,
On last
very
item,
quickly,
yes.
very briefly.
Cat doesn't stop.
That's right. You know that.
It doesn't stop.
The sponsors say that they have 440 impact affected properties. Okay? And he claimed that they have only 50 objections. We have in our hand over 150 letters right now.
And
say
again,
no.
you can present that to the chief clerk, okay?
That's
After
it.
the
I just
hearing's
want to
over.
put that.
Okay?
on-
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you very much. We're going to have a last panel, 4 people, if they're here, to support. Just 4, okay? So you're speaking in support, all 4 of you?
Yes.
Okay, good. And I'm just asking you, please, to be brief, and I do appreciate the last panel being respectful. I appreciate that. Please, whoever would like to start, please identify yourself and proceed.
My name is Chris Fitfatsis. I'm an affected property owner and a business owner in the South Philly. I own Hawthorns. I was asked, I actually volunteered my time to support this bid for the neighborhood. And I'm actually proud to stand next to very influential people who support the bid, who are smart, intelligent people, who are forward-thinking people, such as Mark Vetri, such as Amelia, who own properties. They took a risk. You know, they started off a little Italian market, and now they're a national player. It's just, you sit here and you listen to Fishtown wanting to create a bid, and there's tremendous momentum in Fishtown, and they want to keep the momentum. The fact of the matter is the Italian market has 0 momentum. We're trying to keep it alive. I just was informed today that another corner is dropping on 9th Street, another business is closing. Monsoon, 9th and Christian closed. Iconic property right there. It didn't survive, it closed. Golden Donuts, I just heard today, closed another corner. These corners are dropping in the Italian market. There needs to be somebody to defend it. There needs to be a group to organize it. There needs to be someone who puts effort behind this national treasure. It's truly a national treasure. One that is, when you see people walk down the street, you see confusion on their faces. Tourism is a big aspect to the city's revenue right now. And they come down, they see the Italian market, and they walk, and they're ashamed. We should be ashamed of what we're putting out there for these people to see what we're doing. So it's nice that we have actually people standing up and want to defend what it is. they opened up, the opposition opened up, and that was nice. It was appreciated that there is a mutual respect we have for the opposition, that we want to bridge the gap. There's not a line, there's not a segregation. We want to bring everyone along with it. And so that was nice to hear that. So we do appreciate that side, and we hope that they appreciate what we're trying to do. And we're trying to grow it. We're trying to have people live above the stores. We're trying to have people feel safe walking around at nighttime. And you can only do that with human activity. Humans want to walk around where they feel safe, where it's clean, where it's presentable, where it's attractive. And frankly, it's not. So I sit here proudly, representing myself, representing the positive of the Italian market, the neighborhood of the Italian market. And I hope that there is a lot of people who come out and support it. And I hope that the detractors do understand that there's good intention here and that it is immediately impacted. The city will raise taxes. There's a plastic ban, plastic tax going around, the soda tax going around. That doesn't come directly to the market. What we're proposing is directly to the market. So we hope that there are some forward thinkers in the opposition. We hope that the opposition does see that there are people who want to sweep their sidewalks since they're not sweeping their own sidewalks. We'll take care of that. There's photos.
All right.
I'll be happy to show the
All right.
photos.
I got you, sir. Okay, if we could move on to the next person, please.
Thank you. I am Anthony Anastasio. I am the owner of Anthony's Italian Coffee House for the last 25 years, and I am the fourth generation of the Anastasio family, both living and working on the market. Over the last decade, many business leaders on the market have been working with the city to improve our relationships and improve our marketplace. Unfortunately, the market continues to experience numerous changes and challenges, and we have been watching many of the other neighboring districts around us thrive. They all have one common denominator. That common denominator is a business improvement district. The creation of a bid for 9th Street would allow the opportunity for us to supplement the city services through cleaner streets, through improving safety in our community at large, while working to continue to help the blighted situation and the abandoned properties. Our vision supports creating more open space and a more friendly, vibrant, and sustainable business district now and for the next generation. I understand that there is opposition and people fear change, but a majority of the business and property owners do support the community efforts to improve 9th Street through the creation of a bid. Thank you.
Thank you. You state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Emilio Magnucci, third generation business owner of the Bruno Brothers in the Italian market. My grandparents were immigrants and started this business 80 years ago. Having the opportunity to build upon that foundation, the Bruno Brothers, we have businesses located in other bids around Philadelphia, and outside the area. I see and realize the value of a bid firsthand, how it's helped business districts and, businesses that could have potentially, gone under and closed and failed, and helped them turn around. As an entrepreneur, I'm not a real big fan of just leaving my fate to chance. I like to do as much as I can to help increase the odds to be successful. And in order to be a successful business district in South Philly, we need to help ourselves, to help the city be able to help us remain viable. I think a bid is one of the few ways to do this. We need the ability to be able to be a better district, not just for the businesses in the market, but for the customers that come through the market and for the neighbors that live in the area. I don't know if everybody knows this in our area, but our two churches, St. Paul's and St. Mary's, are at risk of closing, and we will have, we will lose two more churches. And we heard that earlier today from Paul Stanky. So I don't know, I'm trying to do all that I can to help the business district and the area, and hopefully we get this thing passed so that the market can survive.
Thank you. I think we have one more person to speak.
Hi, my name's Lou Zahner. I'm a long-term property owner in the Italian market. I purchased a property 15 years ago that had a clothing store on the ground floor and had a vacant apartment above it. I renovated the apartment, reactivated the dormant space, and kept the same tenant who was in the clothing store. He's been there for 15 years. Recent years, he's had to go down to just operating the store on the weekend and taking a full-time job during the week because there's just not the traffic on the street anymore. I've seen the place. When I bought it 15 years ago, I thought there's so much potential here in the Italian market. 15 years later, I'm here basically saying the same thing. There's so much potential if we could just harness some kind of support. And I think the Business Improvement District is the best way forward in that respect, because for small business owners, they already wear a lot of hats. They can't wear these additional hats of, keeping everything clean, of creating a cohesive marketing plan to promote the entire corridor. I think for the cost of the bid to the property owners, it's a very small investment, and it's more than worth taking a chance. If it doesn't work out, the provision sunsets, and I think it's kind of a last stand for the market. There's some businesses that have been doing really well. They're always going to do well. There's a lot of businesses that are struggling. It could really benefit from the services that the bid would offer. Thank you.
I appreciate you all coming down here. Mark, you have anything? Councilman?
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment. Thanks, everybody, for coming out to testify. We really appreciate the time and efforts. We know it's not easy to sit here all day and to listen to this, but what we do want to do is we'll ask, Vern to try to work with people in the opposition and Renee to try to work with the people in the opposition to see if there's any middle ground that you could come up with as people are starting to vote. I mean, you live together, you work together, you want to try to get along together if possible. If not, the democratic process will play out, and once the votes are tallied, we will let people know whether it would move forward or not. Good work to everybody who's been here today, and we know there's a lot of passion out there. So, thank you for that. Because you care, that's why Philadelphia is a special place.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Both sides. Thank you. Ms. Marconi, our final bill of today. Hallelujah.
Bill number 190551, an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing zoning designations of certain areas of land with an area bounded by Bering Street, Saunders Avenue, Powelton Avenue, 38th Street, Filbert Street, Sloan Street, Powelton Avenue, and 39th Street, all under certain terms and conditions.
Ms. Gorsuch, before you start, if I could ask people, as you're leaving, the hearing is still going on, please leave quietly. Then in the hallway, you can talk about anything you want, okay? And you're obviously not listening to me. Please, please go ahead. Thank you. Mr. Gregorski, and we have Mr. Russell too? Is that him coming? Okay, fine. And then, again, try to set the ground rules as Mr. Russell is coming up. How many people here are opposed? All right, 4 people. Pick 4 people to speak. 4. How about support? Who's here? Who else wants to speak in support? 4 people, okay? Pick them, all right? There you go, Mr. Gregorski.
Good morning, Marty Gregorski with the City of Philadelphia Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 190551, which was introduced in the City Council on June 13th of this year by Councilmember Blackwell. This bill amends the Philadelphia zoning maps in the area described. It rezones the Penn Presbyterian Medical Center to an appropriate zoning designation, CMX4, Center City Commercial Mixed Use, that allows for further development and expansion of their services on the site, as well as correctively rezoning Saunders Park to SPPOA, Active Parks and Recs, to ensure the future use of this site.
Excuse me, please. All right, please, outside, because it's hard to hear when other people are speaking. Sorry.
To ensure the future use of the site as a park that is open to the neighborhood and the greater public. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered bill number 190551 at its meeting of July 16th of this year and recommended it for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Oh boy. Mr. Russell, please.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Russell. I'm Associate Executive Director for Operations at Penn Presbyterian Medical Center. And I'd like to thank the committee for having us here today to testify on this bill. So Penn Medicine is committed to develop and grow the campus and grow the services at the Penn Presbyterian Medical Center. We are operating a world-class healthcare facility, and we want to continue to do that both now and into the future. And that will require that we continue to modernize the campus. And by modernizing it over time, we will have to replace and reconfigure the buildings and services that we provide to meet the needs both of the local community as well as the larger region. The current zoning classification for the campus is RM1, which is multifamily residential, which does not reflect what actually goes on the campus, and in fact prohibits hospital, healthcare, and health practitioner uses. So it clearly does not fit what we're doing on the campus and what we've been doing at that location since 1871. So we've been meeting with various community groups, getting their input, having a back and forth dialogue for more than a year. In fact, last June we had a bill that we were preparing to present, which would rezone to CMX4, and the community groups asked us to withdraw, and so to have some further discussions with them about the campus as well as Saunders Park. So we did do that, and then we met with the community groups more, and we've come back with this revised bill, which not only changes the Presbyterian campus, the main block of property, to CMX4, which is an appropriate zoning, but it also protects Saunders Park. Saunders Park is right next to the Penn Presbyterian campus, if you're familiar with that area, and Penn Presbyterian and Penn Medicine own that property, and we've been operating it as a park for the benefit of the community for many years. And one of the concerns of the community was that they wanted us to continue to operate it and have it be open to the community as a park. And so that was obviously one of the things that we agreed to commit to, and that's why the bill was modified. And so that'll keep them as a park in perpetuity. Additionally, we've had other meetings with other stakeholders, and we've come to an agreement, and we intend to limit development on the property to 500% of FAR with a limit of 750% FAR with bonuses, institute a 140-foot height limit along Palton Avenue within 50 feet of Palton Avenue. We've agreed to share a draft of the campus master plan when it's prepared with the community and get their input. We've also agreed to meet with the RCOs and other stakeholders 2 to 3 times a year to discuss both community priorities and ongoing activities at the hospital. And I just want to point out that there are 6 RCOs that are interrelated to Penn Presbyterian's campus, and 5 of the 6 RCOs have written letters of support for this bill, which both rezones Presbyterian correctly for the future, as well as protects Saunders Park going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think along those lines, I have a copy of a letter from Michelle Volpe, Chief
Yes, she's
Executive
this-
Officer, who kind of outlined what you just said, and that letter will be part of the record, okay? Any questions for this panel? Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, or afternoon.
Good afternoon, unfortunately.
So you say 5 of the 6 RCOs have consented or are in agreement with the terms of whatever you've negotiated?
Yes.
Can you share with us the trepidation or the reservation or the concerns expressed by the RCO that did not concur?
Well, we think we've addressed the concerns that the RCO who is not in support of this, and the letter that Michelle Volpe, the CEO, outlines the concerns that were raised by them with us, and we believe that we've addressed them. So you'll have to ask them as to what their continuing issue is.
And they're here to testify, I know.
So in your words, what were the concerns?
The concerns that we understood was a limitation on the height along Powelton Avenue, that we would limit the density of construction on the property,
Okay.
that we would regularly meet with them and other community organizations to share what was going on and to get their input, and that we would communicate with them and have an opportunity for the RCOs and the community stakeholders to comment on a master plan draft. And we believe that we've addressed those issues and concerns, so you'll have to ask them what their continuing issue is.
So unlike other experiences that we've heard from RCOs this morning, it sounds like there's been some regular, continuous information update with all of those 6 RCOs, so that everybody's principally on the same page, reading from the same sheet of music. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say, and that's the way that we have always and continue to work with the community organizations around Penn Presbyterian. We're not a developer. We're not coming in to sort of build something and run away. We're a neighbor, and we want to have good relationships with our neighbors, and we have people who, both myself and other members of my team, as well as members of Penn Medicine and the University of Pennsylvania, who meet with the organizations because we want to have a good relationship. It doesn't help us to have conflictual relationships with our community organizations. So we've been doing that, and we will continue to do that going into the future.
And my last question is, how long has it been since the announcement of this effort and us getting here today? What kind of time has passed?
I think it's about 18 months that we've been working with the communities and having various meetings and back and forth.
And so you have evidence that it's been 18 months from the time that the RCOs received notice to the meetings that took place to us arriving here today? Because we get lots of information from all sides, and too often we don't have documentation. And if it's in the world I live in, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
I understand that, and we're in healthcare, and we live by the same credo. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So I believe that
You say I believe. Do you know that to be so?
Yes, we do. We have documentation of that.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for your testimony.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, again, as we did in these last hearings, we got 4 people who are opposed to this plan. Please come up. 4 people. Pick your 4. And those of you who do not have a chance to actually speak, if you want to put your name in the record, you can let us know, or if you have any written testimony, give it to us. 4 people.
We're going to just bring 3, if that's okay.
Bring 3. Well, I'm happy with that. I should have said no more than 4, okay? All right. 3's fine. And maybe one of you, when you're speaking, can just address the question Councilwoman Reynolds Brown raised and was brought up about the letter. Have you seen this? Everybody seen this letter? Yeah. The Penn Medicine letter? Okay.
Yes.
All right. If you could address that in some way. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Sure. So my name is Steve Sabelski, and I'm the president of the Powelton Village Civic Association. And I'm here to speak in opposition to Bill 190551. Before my remarks, really quickly, I just want to publicly thank Councilwoman Blackwell for her support on this issue and on all other matters in our district. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. So this bill would rezone, as we've heard, the Penn Presbyterian campus to CMX4, Center City commercial zoning. With this rezoning, the development on this 12.7 acre site could eclipse the 3-story brick row homes just across the street. Imagine the traffic, the noise, the shadows, and other issues that could come with blank check CMX4 high-rise development a few hundred feet from your doorstep. That's not something our residents want, and as you can see, they're very concerned. However, our community is not anti-development, and we know how to compromise. We believe that rezoning the campus is workable if, along with this bill, we obtain an agreement that protects the community's interests. Our requests for such an agreement are very reasonable. Mr. Russell just articulated them a couple minutes ago, but we want a master plan so we know what to expect of future development. We want community voices to be heard during the design of significant projects. We want modest controls on density and height, and we want an economic opportunity plan that distributes some of the benefits of development to the broader West Philadelphia community. This letter that they provided to Councilwoman Blackwell just yesterday nods to these needs, but it doesn't actually accomplish them. It's vague. It doesn't commit to the substance or the timing of much, and it doesn't secure the community's interest in this situation. We need a real agreement here. Penn Presbyterian officials may want to make this about their intentions, which may be nothing but good. But this bill isn't about intentions, it's about zoning, and zoning is forever. We need an agreement that will protect our community now and into the future. Now, some of our neighbors may have a different approach, as we heard. We value their partnership, and we hope that any agreement includes their input. So with that, that concludes my remarks. I simply request that this bill remain here until such an agreement has been reached. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Commissioner, how are you?
Good afternoon.
You're here in retirement
Chairman.
or what?
Yeah, I have to stay active. Good afternoon, Chairman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. My name is Deborah McCarty. I'm here to testify in opposition to Bill number 190551. I am co-chair of Pownton Village's Zoning Committee and, of course, a resident of Pownton Village. As you are very likely aware, Pownton is a wonderful neighborhood with many townhouses and low-rise development. A few years ago, City Council, through the help of Councilwoman Blackwell, gave us a neighborhood conservation overlay to help our neighborhood retain its special character. This bill would rezone this medical campus to CMX4, as you've heard. That is not appropriate. Spins would be the correct zoning designation for this property because Spins contains a requirement of having a master plan. Our next witness, our attorney Paul Bonney, will explain more about this in a moment. CMX4, however, is essentially a blank check for Penn to overwhelm our small communities. Our simple request is that they agree to a community benefits agreement or some binding agreement which primarily commits them to develop a master plan. Incredibly, they have stated to us that they have none, facilitate community involvement through an advisory group, height density limits, and economic opportunity plan. When we met with Penn stated that these are very reasonable requests. However, they don't do community benefits agreements. This is a bit perplexing as Drexel and Brandywine Realty Trust, one of the largest developers in Philadelphia, have signed CBAs with us and many other local groups, including with Mantua, PEC, People's Emergency Center, and West Pownton Saunders. Penn has told us that they will do many of the things we're requesting. While I am sure that their intentions are good, without memorializing these items in an enforceable document, nothing stops them or future Penn leadership from doing as they wish with their CMX4 blank check. I thus respectfully request that this bill be voted down or at least held until a community benefits agreement or some sort of binding agreement can be agreed upon. Thank you.
Mr. Bonney?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much. My name is Paul Bonney, and I'm an attorney representing Pownton Village Civic Association. I believe that Bill 190551 is inappropriate. The Penn Presbyterian Medical Center is located on a 12.7-acre campus at 3800 Powelton Avenue. We have a photograph. This campus is a single parcel. It's a single parcel, and it currently includes about 7 buildings and open areas also. The SPINS, sometimes called SPINS, the SPINS zoning classification is suitable for this parcel. Why? Because the purpose of SPINS, as set forth expressly in the zoning code, is to encourage development of institutional uses, quote, in accordance with an approved master plan. And that's the key. It calls for a master plan. Under SPINS, the master plan is presented and approved. Approved by whom? By the City Planning Commission. Of course, Penn should have a master plan. We've asked Penn on numerous occasions for a copy of their master plan, and they've consistently told us that they don't have one. But in September of this year, Penn Presbyterian's CEO said to our community organization in a different setting that they've engaged an architect to help them develop a long-term plan. She also mentioned that they're planning to open a 1,400 space parking garage in about 2 years. That is concerning to us, and I suggest that it should be concerning to the city. Are we opposed to that? Is the city opposed to that? Maybe not. But we're entitled, and the city is entitled, to hear about it and be able to provide input, and not by the good graces of Penn, but as a requirement, because that's the only way that input is meaningful. The Planning Commission in its draft 2035 plan called for meaningful input. by recommending that Penn Presbyterian Medical Center be zoned SPINS. In the technical memorandum of the 2035 plan, published in 2012, the city said as follows: recent master plans by Penn and Drexel, closely vetted by the city and codified in SPIN zoning, have in most cases looked to redirect institutional growth away from likely conflicts with adjoining neighborhoods. And the city continued in its 2035 document, SPINS districts have yet to be created for USP and Penn Presbyterian. In the face of that recommendation, that is, looking to have to do a master plan that would be closely vetted by the city, Penn pushed back. The city published, as the city published in its comment document, Penn said that for Presbyterian Hospital, quote, the proposed zoning is SPINS. While the parcel is large enough to qualify for SPIN zoning, it is not expansive enough to truly benefit from this zoning designation. Isn't that an interesting comment? Penn didn't think that they can benefit from the SPINS designation. Of course, maybe not, but the SPINS designation is meant to benefit the community and the city, to protect us. The bill on the table granting CMX4 for the entire campus would represent a blank check for Penn. The same situation presented itself with the University City High School site, which is indicated in yellow in the drawing. But together at the University City High School site, together we solved it with Drexel University, the owner of the property. City Council granted Drexel generous zoning, but only after we put in place a community benefits agreement that required a master plan. And it required a master plan to be developed in a process that was open and transparent and that took into consideration community input. It provides for a process that was meaningful, and that agreement is working well. The bill under consideration is inappropriate. It singles out this property from similarly surrounding land for the economic benefit of one entity. It would be an island of zoning for the benefit of one landowner and to the detriment of the residential community. I would suggest that the committee do one of two things: either vote no on this bill or hold it in committee until we can put together an agreement with Penn. The letter they submitted yesterday afternoon is a start, but there's much more work that needs to be done. We're prepared to roll up our sleeves and get it done as we have always done in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will just note that, the representative from the university said that there's an agreement. I'm not sure that there is any agreement. My understanding is there's a letter stating the university's intentions. That, to me, is not an agreement make.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Councilman, you had asked to respond to Councilwoman Reynolds Brown question.
Okay.
And,
Well, I think he just did. He said this is
Well,
a
if you-
start, but not enough. But
Well,
yeah.
our RCO hasn't been pulled into it for a year and a half. We've only been brought into it since November of 2018, and we've been attempting to work with Penn. And it was only just last night that we got that letter of intent through Councilwoman Blackwell's office. So we've been trying. And I think, as we've said, we all want the same good things for the community, but we're hoping that there's
I got you.
something.
These things sometimes
If you're
are difficult.
interested, we're prepared to tell you the areas of disagreement, but we'll leave that with you.
Okay.
I think it was a month ago that we gave Penn in writing everything that we're asking for, so the things that we're still asking for today, they've known about for a month. And we're asking for nothing new, nothing more, nothing different. In fact, we've compromised.
We're going to hear from.
We've compromised quite a bit since then. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, fine. Thank you. No other questions. Thank you very much. I
Thank
should
you.
put on record that we do have letters of support from the People's Emergency Center, from residents of West Poughton Saunders Park RCO, from Bernadette White.
Mr.
Ward
Chairman,
leader of the
but
24th Ward.
as you go through the letters, would you mind?
Can you let me finish, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And also from the Drexel Area Property Association, all in support, and those letters will be made part of the record.
I was just asking for the dates of those letters, like the PEC.
Pardon me?
I was just asking for the dates of those letters, like the PEC letter, what the date is.
PEC letter was August 6th.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now, support. No more than 4 people. I'd like 3, but no more than 4. Who's coming? This is the last panel. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Young lady in the back, 4. That's it. Okay.
How you
Just
doing?
4. I want to be fair to everybody. 4 people. All right.
Councilman, my name is Gary
Please.
Jonas from the Drexel Area Property
Yes.
Association. I just wanted to get on the record that we have dealt with Penn and through this process of them trying to work through it and have found that they've been very accommodating, and we believe that the CMX4 zoning is appropriate for the site. We believe that the master plan that's been asked for, while it's good, those things are fluid and they change all the time, and that the density requirements and the setbacks that they put in place are certainly appropriate for the site. We understand how important the site is to the community in general. We want to see it be successful. And so over the last year and a half, we've been working with them, and we've been thrilled with the process, and we think the project as they've laid out is good.
Okay, thank you very much. And not to be rude to anybody, but I see 4 more people. I can only hear from 3 more people. You all make your choice, okay? Please, sir.
How you guys doing today?
We're hanging in here.
I see. My name is Antoine Mapp, and I'm actually the Vice President of West Politan Concerned Community Council. Our organization been in this neighborhood for over 45 years. Our president was L.C. Wise. We support the bill because University of Penn, Drexel, Presbyterian, been supporting us, support my grandma for the last 45 years. Now that I've been a part of it for the last 28 years. I joined this organization when I was 11. I'm 39 years old. I've been in this community every day keeping kids safe off the streets. And everyone that I see that oppose this bill, I don't see in the community at all. I'm there every single day. And the only support we get is from Penn, from Councilwoman Jenny Blackwell's office. So that's the only support that we always get. Now that we have someone that's coming in here that's actually trying to keep our neighborhood and keep our organizations known, because as of right now, they trying to push us out our neighborhood and take us out our neighborhood. I went to University City High School. It's not here no more. When I drive by to show my kids, I can't show them what high school I went to, what middle school. I went to Salzburger Middle School. It's not here no more. I have nothing to show my kids. So it's like, we try our best to do so much for the seniors in our community and the kids in our community. And these new organizations that came in, they took over our neighborhood and pushed everyone out. Well, we one of the last few that's standing, and we're not going nowhere. And everyone in this panel might know my face because our community, West Politan, also have a community drill team and drumline. And we done sent over 1,000 kids to college out our pockets, and we continue to do it, and we just want to let you know that we support this bill.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, please. Please state your name and proceed.
Good morning. My name is Pamela Andrews. I am the chair of West Poughton Saunders Park RCO, and we are here today to express our support for the corrective zoning change for Penn Presby, which has been introduced by Councilwoman Blackwell. We support the zoning change because residents of West Poughton Saunders Park view Penn Presby as a responsible anchor institution and a good neighbor. We want to continue to support them in providing world-class care in our area. And in respect to council's time, I'd just like to have the residents of our neighborhood who took time out of their busy schedules
Sure.
to come down today to lend support to stand, please.
Sure.
Could you stand?
Okay. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, you finish up here.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Wise. I don't know if I'm coming through well enough. I've been a committee person in this neighborhood for the past 42 years. I'm also the judge of elections for the past 35 years. I am also a cancer survivor. I have colon cancer for about a year and a half. We need this hospital in our neighborhood. There might be opposition against this bill, but we need it for our seniors, we need it for our residents, and those who may get sick, who will be closer to their neighborhood. The opposition feels that they are the community. They have never been the community. We have always been the community. It seems to be that we have a lot of people who think they're moving in the neighborhood who are part of the community. They're not. We want this bill passed. And we have a lot of people that want this bill passed. So please, Councilman, I think we should vote on this bill. It should go through. Penn has been our help for the past 32 years. And they've helped our seniors, our youth, our kids, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, we've heard from the two panels. That'll complete. Let me just ask one. I assume from what you're saying, all you feel that you had some interaction with Penn and they addressed your issues? Now, ma'am, I got to keep it at 4, okay?
We've had interaction with Penn for the past 35 years.
Okay.
And that's been between Penn Presby, Pennsylvania, and Drexel, and People Emergency Center.
Okay.
And we have met with Penn for the past year, over a year, on this process.
Penn, like you said, Penn been supporting us for years. Last Saturday, our community drumline just performed for Penn halftime of their football game. Besides that, they help support with Councilwoman Jenny Blackwell. They help support Christmas party that we have every year at Presbyterian Hospital for 125 community kids and sick kids in the hospital, which I play Santa Claus.
Okay.
So, yes, they support us.
Or you have any pictures of that? We want to see that.
Say that again?
You have any pictures?
I have pictures, videos for 20 years.
Okay.
I'll be glad to show you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right. That will complete our hearing today. Momentarily, we'll go into a public. I should note it for the record, the Councilwoman Blackwell, the sponsor of the last bill, is present. I don't think I said that. Again, this completes our public hearing. We'll go into a public meeting momentarily. Mark. She didn't say anything. I don't think she wants to. All right, we got a quorum here. Okay, you can just hang in there one more minute for us, please, and let us finish our business here. We are now in the meeting of the Rules Committee. We have a quorum, and Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion on amendments to bills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the amendments to Bill Number 190711, 190601, 190506, 190612, and 190613.
Second. It's moved and seconded that the amendments be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the amendments as read by Councilman Squilla are approved. Again, Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bills read into the record, Bill Number 190711 as amended, Bill 190601 as amended, Bill number 190506 as amended, Bill number 190655, Bill 190611, 190612 as amended, 190613 as amended, 190659, 190660, and Bill number 190551 with the suspension of the rules of council to be read at the next session.
To be approved.
To be approved and favorable recommendation at the next council session.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. The bills as read by Councilman Squilla be reported out as committee favorably with a rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the bills, again, as read by Councilman Squilla, all reported out as committee favorably with a rule suspension to allow for first reading our next session of council. We thank everybody for their time, participation. Thank you very much. What? What? We moved the whole thing. Yeah, we moved the whole thing. We